me since the day I came on this council to hear us talk about rape kits that should have been acted on as part of the $1.3 billion budget. Shall I quote you an LA Times piece of yesterday that more than 115 of these officers, able-bodied, are sitting in civilian jobs that should be out in the street? Could we not reorganize our $1.3 billion, have done it by now? I know that's over with, but you said 26 new positions by 2010 and it'll be a non-issue. Is that right?
I think that will handle our incoming
Do we have
kids.
to have more money from our budget, or can we take these sworn officers, put them out in the street where they belong, hire civilians to do it, and be more efficient in the police department and get this job done? This is a job that our chief, who came from New York, who came here 5 years ago, so he decided that we weren't going to do this a couple of years ago, and now, because of political pressure, we're doing it. Why are we in this spot today? That's what I want to know.
Well, I think I talked about that. How we got to this spot is
How
that
did we get here?
Well, we initially, when the criteria was not to test all kits, which I don't agree with, we were at capacity, and we had a lab that could test what was coming in based on detective requests. Now that we've changed that, our lab is no longer equipped to handle what is our new mandate, which is to test all kits. Now, the argument can be, why didn't we decide to test all kids sooner? I can't address that. All I can address is how we're moving forward.
Revealing a personal experience, District 7 Councilmember Richard Alarcon says we must do whatever it takes to have these backlogged rape kits processed.
I still remember in 1987 when my sisters and mother called me to a family meeting to tell me that my mother had been raped in Washington, D.C. on a trip. And I still remember how the DA recommended to her not to come forward because she was in Los Angeles. It would be difficult for a woman in her 60s to go to D.C. and fight the case. But the DA didn't know my mom, and my mom fought the case. And eventually, the perpetrator was put in jail for 7 years. As I came to City Council, I sat down with Jack Weiss. One of the first things I did, because I wanted to find out what was going on with these rape kits. And Eric told me that Jack was going to be the vanguard on that issue. So I sat down with Jack and I gave my full support for any measures that it would take to clear out these rape kits. Because I couldn't even fathom how many times that guy could have raped somebody else if my mom had not come forward. I couldn't imagine how many people would be deterred from reporting any kind of crime if my mom had taken the DA's advice. And I think, when I think of the thousands and thousands of kits that have not been processed, I think that we've created almost psychology, because you know how the system works. The guys know what will be filed and what won't be filed. They know. And I believe they know that rape is not a priority in our city. And I believe that it encourages others to act in the same way. So whatever it takes, we got to do it.
Saying it's disturbing that we're still talking about a backlog of rape kits, District 15 Councilmember Janice Hahn asks about outsourcing, sending kits to outside private labs.
Really, all women in this city and beyond, the right to be protected against, this type of a crime. Those rights are being violated because we have not tested this evidence and then really made it a priority to find these men and prosecute them and get them off the streets. And it's really creating a very unsafe environment in Los Angeles. And if there's anything that's at your core, it is to protect and to serve. So it's really very disturbing. I'm trying to get a handle on, is it about creating capacity with these positions, or is it about, outsourcing the testing of this evidence? Is it equal? Are you putting more emphasis on the backlog or on creating capacity as we move forward?
It has to be both. It absolutely has to be both. We can't build enough internal capacity to test the backlog. So we have to outsource the backlog
Right.
while we build...
What's the advantage of outsourcing it versus creating capacity? Is there someone?
Well,
it sounds like the way you describe it, there's other labs that are actually doing it better. So why wouldn't we actually spend more emphasis on testing the backlog, outsourcing it? Are we using...
Because we can do that. I can do that at a level that I can't do internally. It takes...
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Time, well, because it takes time to hire criminalists. There's only so many available in
Right.
this region. We're hiring them as quick as we can train them up. And if I was to wait until I had a adequate staff to test the backlog...
No, you're missing my point. I'm saying, why aren't we spending more emphasis on outsourcing and...
We are. I've outsourced...
More than equal. I would rather see us spend the resources on outsourcing and getting this evidence tested than creating capacity.
I'm outsourcing as quickly as I can, given the funding that I have, and giving the qualified labs that I can outsource to. So far, since I took over this
What I'm
position...
saying is, do you see what I'm saying? And I don't know, no one's really telling me.
I can't outsource any more than I'm doing right now. If I could outsource more, I would.
Why can't you outsource more?
Because there's only so many qualified labs that have so much capacity to take these things. We have contracts with 2 labs, Bodie and Cellmark, and we are operating them at what they tell us is their capacity to take these kids.
There's only certain labs that do this.
That's exactly right, because they have to be certified labs. Now, we're actively looking for more labs, but the other thing is that I'm on target to spend all the funds that I have by the end of this fiscal year. So we have a measured process to get this thing done.
Before the final vote on the matter, Jack Weiss offers some closing remarks.
And I think we're all looking forward to the day when we can not only just put this issue behind us, but really ensure that the LAPD is a true model for the rest of the region and the nation. And I think I have a feeling, based on everything that was discussed here today, that is in fact going to happen. Thank you all.
Madam Clerk, to conclude the public comment as well as the comments from council members, could we have this issue before us?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, can we open the roll on this?
Vote on your motion. Yeah.
Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much.
It was learned Friday that the proposed Children's Museum under construction in the San Fernando Valley would have to file for bankruptcy. The museum would need at least $22 million to open its doors. Richard Alarcon says the city is currently in positive discussions with the museum.
Members, as you are now well aware, the Children's Museum announced yesterday that the board took a vote on Wednesday evening to file a bankruptcy under Chapter 11, under Chapter 7, which essentially is a liquidation of the entire organization. While the bankruptcy has not been filed, as far as we know, we are in communication with the executive director of the Children's Museum, and they recognize that the city has to take certain actions. These 5 actions would allow us to develop the appropriate mechanisms to protect the facility and the city's broad interests in this matter. So I would ask that, and I should mention that this was crafted in consultation with the CLA, the CAO, the city attorney, and the mayor's office. And I should say that while this is not a good day for the children of Los Angeles, we absolutely are working diligently to develop a program of positive endeavors at the site. I want to stress that the direction of the board, as I was informed by the executive director of the museum, was that the bankruptcy had to be filed before April, or no later than April 17th. So that stresses the urgency of Los Angeles taking these actions, and I would urge your aye vote.
Standing in support of his colleague, Jack Weiss says this is a loss for the entire city, not just Council District 7.
Mr. Alarcon, I just want to say to you, you're former Senator and current Councilmember Alarcon. We now have former Councilmember and current Senator Padilla. You guys have both poured your heart and soul into this project, and to do a wonderful thing for the kids of LA, but particularly the kids of the Northeast Valley. And you've had all these fastballs thrown at your heads, I just think that it's something that it's important for all of us that even though the issue is in CD7, that all of us understand that it is much more than a CD7 issue. It's an issue that's really about the good of the whole city, and we all have to come together for you and help you, because you're going to need lots of resources, more resources than just you can bring to bear from the CD7 perspective. We all need to participate with you and help you in that.
All right, thank you. With that, Mr. Alarcon?
To instruct the clerk to do what?
Put this item on the Tuesday
Put this
agenda.
item on the April 7th agenda.
Okay. With that, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
All right, that will be the instruction. Forthwith, please, without objection.
We will continue to watch this story as it unfolds and bring you updates on the course of action. Now, if you have suggestions or comments about any of the programs you see here on Channel 35 or would like to receive a free viewer guide, call our viewer hotline at 213-473-3978. And we invite you to address the Los Angeles City Council on any item on the council agenda, as well as during public comment. You may come downtown to City Hall or go to either the Van Nuys City Hall or the San Pedro City Hall and participate via video teleconferencing. Remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. On Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending April 3rd, 2009. On behalf of Lee Smith and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
Hello, I'm Martin Cooper, President of the Los Angeles Quality and Productivity Commission. Our commission helps city departments make their operations more efficient, customer-friendly, and cost-effective. One of the ways we do that is by recognizing outstanding projects through the annual Quality and Productivity Awards. This year, 28 projects have won awards. Join us while we show you a few of these outstanding projects.
From parades to parks, irrigation to the internet, the Quality and Productivity Commission is honoring the best the city has to offer.
Ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, welcome from the entertainment capital of the world, the Hollywood Santa Parade.
When the chamber was doing it, the price tag was about $1 million for both filming the parade or getting it on television, filming it, quality production, and putting the parade on. We were able to do it for roughly half that cost.
The new bill date is the 19th, which is next Friday. So please, if you will, go ahead and pay the $200 and call us back. I'll make a notation on your account, okay?
There's only one call waiting, and the maximum wait time is only 4 seconds. The speed of answering is very important. When we started at the beginning of the year, it was average 188 seconds in which the phone calls being answered. But right now, they're about 20 seconds or less we're able to answer the phone calls.
We teach our representatives, and they know that the first thing that you do is listen to a customer. You let the customer vent, and you don't take it personally because it's not against us. It's about the situation that they're in. And to show empathy toward the customer, to look for solutions, take action, and make sure that whatever you promise a customer that you're going to do, that you follow up on that.
We want to teach them, first of all, job skills. This program teaches them social interaction with diverse groups, but also life skills that are going to take them not just only here with the city of Los Angeles in this job that they have, but for their future careers and whatever they decide to do, if they want to become mayor themselves or whatever have you.
That was pretty bad. I went from high school to high school, dropped out, got my high school diploma after a little while, but I was in trouble. I was, thinking about my future. This is just like a door opening up, and then it's up to me to to do. They do their part by giving me a chance, and I do my part by working hard.
I couldn't get a job because I didn't graduate high school. I couldn't hold a job either because I didn't really learn any work ethics after school. After I had my first son, I decided I had to make a change. I found this program. It really got me motivated to staying on to the right course.
It makes me feel good. It makes me want to keep going, want to work harder.
For more on the 2008 Quality and Productivity Commission Awards, stay tuned to Channel 35.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Los Angeles, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Wednesday, April 8, 2009. We're here in the John Farrell Council Chambers, room 340 of City Hall. We meet here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m., and we are in Van Nuys City Hall on the first Friday of the month. We welcome all of the members of the public who are here in Council Chambers, those who are viewing us on Channel 35, as well as those who are in our Van Nuys and San Pedro locations, as well as those on the Internet. There's a variety of ways you can follow City Council meetings, of course, here in person, also on television through the city's cable system on Channel 35. We're also available online. You just have to go to our city's homepage at lacity.org and click on the links on the left side. You can catch live streaming video of our council meetings, and our archived footage of past council meetings is available there as well. Finally, you can use your telephone and call in to 213-621-CITY and listen to our council meetings or our committee meetings. Again, that is 213-621-CITY, and that's called Council Phone. It's a service of our Information Technology Agency. I want to thank our city clerks and our city attorney who are assisting us here today, as well as those council members who are here on time. Pursuant to council rules, all council members should be in their seats at 10. We have council members Weezar, Labange, Perry, Rosendahl, Weiss, Wesson, and Zine all here. We are awaiting two more members to constitute a quorum, which is 2/3 of our 15-member body, or 10 members. So if council members Cardenas, Gruhl, Hahn, Parks, Reyes, and Smith, who are late, will please make their way down as soon as possible, we can begin our meeting. Mr. Alarcon is excused today, so he is not expected. We have our agendas available in the back. Those are made available online or in person here at the city clerk's office 72 hours in advance, 24 hours in advance for our special agenda items. And all items receive a public hearing either in committee or in the full council. If you want to be heard on any of those items, fill out a speaker card in the back and hand that to one of the sergeants at arms. Or if you live closer to Van Nuys or San Pedro, you can always go to those facilities, turn in the card there, and we'll be sure to be able to watch you via our video conferencing capabilities. So a wealth of ways to avail yourself of these meetings and to be involved in the process. We are still awaiting those council members to begin. So again, this is our third quorum call for council members Cardenas, Gruhl, Hahn, Parks, Reyes, and Smith. Thank you for your patience while we wait for those late council members. Madam Clerk, you'll please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruhl, Hahn, Weezar, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti, 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right, Mr. Zine moves. Mr. Rosendahl seconds. Without objection, those will be approved. Next order of business, please.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
All right, Ms. Gruhl moves and Ms. Hahn seconds. Without objection, those two will be approved. If we can run through the agenda, please.
Before beginning the regular agenda, Mr. President, there's a request to continue several of the items. Okay. Item number 7, a request on behalf of Council District 7 to continue that matter to April 29th.
Okay, without objection, we'll continue item number 7 till the 29th of April. Next item?
Next item to continue is item number 16, and that's a request to continue that matter to April 15th.
Okay, is there any objection to continuing item 16 till the 15th?
Yes.
Seeing none, we will go ahead and continue that. We can go through the first section.
On the regular agenda, items noticed for public hearings. The first group of items are building and safety items, and the department has advised that on items 1 and 2, the recommendation on those is to receive and file inasmuch as the liens have been paid on those.
Okay, I'll move receiving and filing 1 and 2. That leaves us 1 through 9 specials, colleagues. 1 through 9.
And on items 8 and 9, the recommendation is to grant the application on those two.
We'll move that on both of those items. If nobody wishes to call 1 through 9 special, do we have cards from the public on any of those?
And, Mr. President, there is a card on item number 1, even though it's going to be received and filed, if you wish to hold a public hearing on that item.
Let me ask the applicant. Mr. Eugene Sena, since that's already been paid, so we're receiving and filing? So we're not taking any action. Do you still want to talk anyway today? Why don't you come forward for a second, sir? We're doing what's called receiving and filing, so there's no longer an outstanding lien. It's already been paid. So if you still want to talk, you can, but there's no need to.
It's already been paid?
Yes, it has been.
That's not what I heard. The client spoke to me yesterday.
Okay, that's the information. That's the information we have. We have that the lien has been paid. And Building and Safety is here. Why don't we get you together with Building and Safety over there by the side, and you can talk to them.
Okay, thank you.
This is in District 1.
Okay.
Okay, we'll make sure that happens. We'll hold one on the desk in the meantime, just in case. So that leaves us 2 through 9. Ms. Hahn, did you have anything on 2 through 9?
No, it's 12.
Okay. If nobody has any specials 2 through 9, we'll open and close those public hearings, and please prepare the roll on the ballots and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 10 through 24, and reports have been submitted on item number 12. I believe number 10 is still awaiting a report.
Okay, we'll call that special for Mr. Wesson anyways. Yes, Mr. Rosendahl?
16.
Okay, I know you wanted 12, okay.
16 has already been continued for a week.
We continued 16 to the 15th.
Okay.
Yes, and Ms. Hahn will get first position. You called it first, and then Mr. Rosendahl will follow. Under our council rules, you would speak first anyways because it came through your committee. So goes council chair, and then anybody calling it special, and then the maker of the motion. Any other specials, colleagues? That's 11 through 24. 11 through 24. Give you a second to look at those, make sure. If not, let's go ahead then and please prepare the roll on the balance and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Sorry, Mr. Rosendahl? Did you?
24 was for Mr. Reyes. I was standing up.
Okay, well, let's go ahead. Let's reconsider 23 and 24. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
All right, those will be called special for Mr. Reyes. We're still waiting. Mr. Smith. No, Mr. Smith is here. I see him visually, but he's not on the board. So let's make sure he gets on the board. Don't worry, it's not your fault. Let's take up the next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held, items 25 through 57. 10 votes are required for consideration, and I believe there are cards on 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 33, 52, and 57.
Okay, let's call those special for cards from the public, please. And specials, Mr. Zine?
I'll come, sir.
Sorry?
Take him
He's
first.
pointing
Okay,
over. Mr. Cardenas?
Yeah. Thank you. On item number 27, the head of the department is out today, so we'd like to put over item number 27, which is in regard to the neuter discount, spay and neuter discount voucher program, to move it over to April 21st.
April 21st,
Item
okay.
number 27.
Is there any objection, colleagues? If not, we will continue 27 until the 21st of this month. Yes, Mr. Zine?
Thank you, Mr. President. On item number 28, there's some issues that have arisen on this particular matter, and we'd like to continue it for 1 week.
Okay, is there any objection, colleagues,
To
on item
resolve the
28?
matters.
That would be 1 week, would take us to the 15th as well, till tax day. No objection, then we'll continue that till that day. Mr. Rosendahl?
I know the cards from the public, but we want to make sure it's...
Yep, we got that. Thank you.
All right.
Any other specials, colleagues? If not, let's go ahead and open the roll on the balance of the items. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, those are approved. We have, 26 we called special already as well, so the commissioner.
Yes, it was, for a
Okay.
card.
We will now go to our general public comment, after which we will be moving to the commissioner. Like to remind folks, general public comment is here for items that are not on today's agenda. So any items that are on the agenda, we can't speak of in our general public comment, but we have 2 minutes per speaker, and we have a podium here to make that easy for everybody to guide their times. Our first speaker is Ross Gunnell. Ross Gunnell? Good morning.
I gave a handout. I don't know if you got it. I gave it to each member.
Okay, I'm sure it's been circulated.
I
Go
start
ahead.
now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ready? Okay. I'd like to bring to your attention that the City of Los Angeles, and in particular the Van Nuys Planning Department staff at the counter, is not complying with Assembly Bill 1866 and the permit application process for a second dwelling unit. In Mr. Janovici's June 23, 2003 memo, which I handed to you, I apologize, I was 1 copy short. They said I needed 16. I had 15. But I am requesting that Council request clarification from Michael Legrand and Gail Goldberg as it pertains to the standard in number 2 of Mr. Janovici's SDU memo, second dwelling unit memo, and have them provide clarification to me as well as city staff at the counter in writing. The issue at hand is city staff at the counter is incorrectly interpreting Mr. Janovici's SDU standard number 2 as it applies to the mandated requirements under Assembly Bill 1866 for defining fixed and quantifiable standards for minimum square footage of the lot requirement for an SDU. City staff current interpretation virtually nullifies all single residents qualifying for an SDU. All single residence properties would never qualify. Please refer to the table that I have also provided and the example of the questions to be answered by Planning Director and the Zoning Administrator. I've made several attempts to obtain a second dwelling unit permit from the staff at the counter, as well as repeated phone calls and letters written to Zoning Administrator, City Planning Director, and Principal Planner. I've been pursuing clarification from these individuals for well over 1 year. Dan Scott has been courteous enough to call me back, but I have been unable to get any answer to my questions. And as I see that I'm low on time, if I could get clarification from Michael Logrand and Gail Goldberg. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Dr. Clyde Williams. After that will be Chuck Tenon.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno. Today you'll be considering the Tier 1, Tier 2 levels of water use for the shortage year. However, there should be a Tier 3. Tier 2 is a moderate use. Tier 3 is a big use and should have a special category set aside for it.
Sir, we can't talk about the items that are on the agenda, so if we can wait.
Tier 2, not Tier 1.
Okay, but just be sure, because that's on item 30, so.
Yeah. I am not talking about Tier 1 versus 2. I'm talking about 2 versus 3. So, needs a modification and adjustment. And DWP is right now considering the Tier 2 category and perhaps a separation of it. Just a reminder, we do live in a semi-arid, almost desert area. The rainfall is declining and will continue to get worse, especially in our watershed that we're dependent upon snowpack in 3 different watersheds. The snowpack is diminishing, and that's the real drought. I highly recommend that the City Council recommend to DWP to establish a 3rd tier, that is, one that would consume more than 120 gallons per person per day. Right now, I consume less than 50 gallons per person per day. Double that for the Tier 2, Tier 3 level, and then charge appropriate pricing for those who cannot keep below 120 gallons per person per day. Also, the DWP has had a very poor record in outreach and distributing their Tier 1, Tier 2, and much less Tier 2, Tier 3 levels and how the rates will be calculated. They need to incorporate a better outreach program into the neighborhood councils and to the general public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Tenon is our next speaker.
Good morning, Council President Garcetti and council members. I want to commend Yolanda Chavez for keeping the public informed about what goes on with housing. Notably, the MacArthur Foundation is giving $32 million in grants and loans to preserve and create affordable housing, plus the $4 billion from the stimulus package. Mercedes and Yolanda, keep pushing. Use the money wisely. LA Housing and CRA fight very hard to get dollars. It's not easy, but they do a great job. California drowning in red ink. Our state legislatures must protect us from a proposed legislation, MLPA initiative, and investigate it on any misuse or misappropriation of funds to the amount of $120 that are being spent to implement this new law in the interest of a few and not everyone, that will directly affect the lives of the people of California and potentially cause a negative, devastating, adverse impact on our already struggling economy. When a law affects our city and the people, our city leaders need to act. And you as city leaders are an intricate part of this city. You need to voice your opinions on that and help this city. And recently in a debate between the runoffs on the city attorney, Jack Weiss and Carmen Tutanek put down Jack Weiss for not being involved with gang prevention. Well, guess what? Jack Weiss came to the Watts Gang Task Force, spent a lot of time there, and said it should be in every district in this city, was very impressed. So you know what? There's a man that said he'd be there. He kept his word, and he was there. So don't put him down for not being involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Our next speaker is Lucy Caruso. After that will be Lou Briones. Good morning.
Good morning. I was released from the hospital again yesterday because of a heart problem. And, you know, average is 60 to 100, and I'm at a 38. 38. And for the last 6 months, it's been like this. And I don't get a diagnosis, and I don't get medicines, and my legs have been going bad since 2005. And first thing the doctor will tell me is, don't you have family? He'll say like that. Don't you have family? Why don't you go home and let them take care of you? Well, I was given a women's rights handbook and ERA so that I take care of myself. In the new image, men can keep their clothes bare, the women can't. That means I can't jumpstart the career. And I'm tired of all these people coming at me and calling me a bum and stuff when I'm not the bum. See, I can't talk.
Thank you, Ms. Caruso. Appreciate your comments this morning. Lou Briones is our next speaker. After that is Pat Connolly. Good morning.
Good morning, Councilman. My name is Lou Briones. I reside in Westchester, which is in the 11th District of Los Angeles, represented by Bill Rosendahl. I am one of 248 legacy runners of the LA Marathon, having run all 23 events since the beginning. I'm also the chairman of the Runners Advisory Council. This council is composed of legacy runners, LA Road Runners, Leggers, Students Run LA, New Basin Blues, and others. All of us were denied an opportunity to be heard on the motion to alter the race date of the 2009 LA Marathon and beyond. We are here to inform you of the hardships imposed on all 20,000 plus participants by this decision. Folks were forced to change vacation days, buy new airline tickets, make new hotel reservations and car reservations. Carefully planned training plans had to be redone. We are here to make you see that removing this race date restriction is in the best interest of race participants and the city as well. We will tell you of the hazards of staging a marathon in Los Angeles in late May. You will hear from other runners today, members of clergy, professional folks, church-going runners, coaches, and leaders of running organizations. In the running community, our city's marathon has sustained a black eye. Hundreds of people had to be given a refund, not just because of schedule conflicts, but because they were angry that the race had become political. Why didn't we follow the First Amendment to the Constitution that speaks to separation of church and state? The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states, and I quote, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." Close quotes. We're here to help you recover from that black eye. We urge you to relieve the marathon of the race date restriction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Briones. Our next speaker is Pat Connolly. After that is Reverend Charles Svensson. Good morning.
Council President Garcetti, honorable members of the City Council, thank you for allowing me the time to speak. I have empathy for the churches and their loss for that particular morning on a Sunday morning, but because I'm a Eucharistic minister and lector in my faith, I also have empathy for the thousands of people that participate in this race. For them, it's also a religious significance in their lives to achieve something that is impossible for most. Many of them, the 18,000 that cannot break 4 hours, they're here because they're getting over a drug abuse problem, an alcohol problem, a divorce problem, a lost family member problem. Non-athletes who never had a chance to participate in sports in their youth because they did not have the athletic skills. But now they can line up on a marathon course with the best runners in the world, elite athletes, world record holders, unlike they cannot participate on Dodger Stadium or the Coliseum or the Rose Bowl. But that's their day to run 26 miles, take 49,000 steps, cross the finish line, receive a medal around their neck with it slapping down on their chest with the warmth of success of their achievement. Moving the date up to May makes it impossible for most of them. That heart of the pack cannot handle the heat at that time of the year, so their goal would not be reached. And this I'm really considerably concerned about. Understand I put 30,000 people across that marathon finish line when I was a former coach for the LA Marathon. Also, when I was on the staff of the marathon, we went around to all the churches on the route. We spoke with the pastors, reverends personally. We explained to them the time that they would be have a problem for entering their church grounds. We wrote special detour maps for each church so they could find their way without crossing the lines of the marathon, and it worked out very, very well. The last point I'd like to make, also being a retired LAPD officer and retired U.S. Navy Reserve officer, I spent
Thank you, Mr. Connolly.
2 weeks ago on Mount Suribachi, Iwo Jima, with 35 Marines. 10 fought that battle.
Thank you, sir. We have to do 2 minutes per speaker, and we're a little bit over,
Anyway,
so we appreciate your
They asked
comments.
that we would not have this on their day.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Reverend Charles Svensson is our next speaker, and then after that will be Bill Lockton. Good morning.
Good morning, President Garcetti and other City Council members. My name is Charles Svensson. I'm the new pastor at Wilshire Presbyterian Church at 3rd and Western, and I live in Silver Lake. And I'm also here to request that the LA Marathon be reinstated to its former date of the first Sunday in March. And there are several reasons for this request. Primarily, the health of the runners is at issue. As a former, quite amateur runner myself, finishing 26 miles in the heat of a Memorial Day risks the health of the slower runners, to say the least. So health is my foremost concern, and the March date would alleviate that. But secondarily, as a pastor serving a church in which my immediate predecessor, Chuck Robertson, was before you last year saying that the houses of faith would be inconvenienced with a Sunday run, I would rather choose to say, why not embrace as churches and as faith communities an opportunity to positively and creatively support a community building event like the LA Marathon. So churches can move their services to Saturdays or Sunday afternoons. At my former church at Brentwood Presbyterian Church, we offered water to 10K runners that came by. We played music like Rocky and Chariots of Fire at the corner of San Vicente and Bundy. So all churches and all pastors don't think alike on this issue. And as one Mid-Wilshire pastor, I believe our congregation would welcome moving back the event to the first Sunday in March. Let's see our houses of faith creatively and joyfully embrace this wonderful, healthy community event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Bill Lockton is our next speaker. After that is Philip Steinman. Good morning.
Good morning, President Garcetti and council members. I'm Bill Lockton, also from the Runner Advisory Council, immediate past president and a 10-year board member of the LA Leggers, the original training program for the LA Marathon. And I've been asked to speak to you about the running, the anger that's being felt in the running community over your decision. In fairness, you didn't have all the information, so we're granting you that. I want you to know that we love the LA Marathon. We're very pleased you approved the sale. We want it to succeed. Clearly, no runners were consulted when you came to the choice of the date of the marathon. We waited patiently for you to figure out that President's Day was not going to work. Eventually, you did, which is good. But the result of your decision is that we really only have 2 days that the marathon could be run, practically, either Memorial Day or Labor Day. Fortunately, you chose the lesser of two evils. When you did that, there was, in our running club, we have pace groups, they have email forums, and there was a lot of negativity in them. So we scheduled a town hall meeting to try to get rid of that negativity and focus on something positive. It worked. We picked the Surf City Marathon to focus on. But when the topic came up of what to do after that, we found a shocking response. We had members talking about boycotting the LA Marathon. We're a running club. We just train. We don't boycott anything. People are free to do whatever they want. But this year, instead of bringing 800 people to LA as we traditionally do year after year after year, we'll be lucky if we even get 200. Members are angry. They feel betrayed by LA. They're angry at you, and they're angry at the marathon for not taking their health into consideration, for not even asking for their input. This whole thing was done somewhat in ignorance. So we're here today to offer our services to each of you to bring you up to speed and give you the information that you did not have the first time around. When our members phone you and ask to meet with you and help bring you up to the process, know that I myself represent over several hundred members, 700 constituents for each of you. Please ask your staff to schedule a meeting with us. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments very much. Philip Steinman is our next speaker. After that will be Jeff Urband. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Philip Steinman. I am a PACE leader for the Los Angeles Roadrunners. I've been a PACE leader since 1999 when my high school coach, Coach Pat Conley, asked me to become one. I've seen the LA Marathon boom under the Coach Pat years where we had 2,000 runners annually train for the LA Marathon. The LA Marathon in the last 3 years has suffered a big decline. This year we'll be lucky to have 1,000 LA Roadrunners participate, largely due to the date change in the marathon. I also teach English at 6th grade in Van Nuys at Vista Middle School, and I'm here to teach the councilmen and women reasons why the LA Marathon should be moved back to its original March date. Number one, the Memorial Day is a national holiday for our country's fallen servicemen and women, and an LA Marathon on this day interrupts and conflicts with Memorial Day events and is disrespectful because of this. Number two, the LA Marathon was founded to unite our city after the spirit of the 1984 Olympics, whereas a holiday marathon undoes the spirit of unification by allowing conflicting purposes to compete for attention. Number three, a late May LA Marathon nearly guarantees a much hotter marathon day. The weather is 4 degrees hotter on average than an early March weather, and professional runners will suffer a 2% performance hit for every 5-degree increase. Recreational runners suffer much more. With only 90-degree temperatures in the Chicago Marathon in 2007, the event had to be canceled. The same could happen this year in Los Angeles. A late LA Marathon falls outside the professional marathon circuit that runs from October to April, ending with the Boston Marathon. The LA Marathon is taking out of the season of play. Would we ever consider moving the World Series from October to January, or moving the Super Bowl from January to April? No. Why should the LA Marathon be moved to the summer? That doesn't make any sense. Number five, a late LA Marathon interferes with triathlon season and 5K and 10K season and competes and conflicts with many training programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jeff Urband is our next speaker. After that is George Good.
Would the marathon runners please stand? Thank you. How you doing, guys? How many of you guys have run a marathon? On October 7th, I ran a Chicago Marathon in extreme heat and high humidity. The temperature was 73 degrees at the start, soared to 88 degrees with 86% humidity. The race officials called the race off because there was not enough ambulances to take the runners away. Hundreds were hospitalized. Water cups, Gatorade were in short supply. There were no contingency plans. For mile 6, panic set in. 10,000 of the 45,000 registered chose not to run, and 10,934 did not finish the race. The race was canceled, and one runner died. His name was Chad Scheiber. He was 35. He was a police officer. When this city council voted to limit the marathon to holidays falling on Mondays, the marathon was moved to Memorial Day, and your decision has limited race officials to chart an unsafe course for the future of the marathon. What you have done without careful study of the implications of this decision is to endanger the lives of thousands of runners for years to come, forcing marathoners to run in conditions which could be dangerous due to heat. This is supposed to be a celebration for the city of Los Angeles, but it could be a recipe for disaster. By your decision to add a holiday clause, we're hoping that you can change this and rescind your decision that was put into this contract. It affects thousands of runners. Why would you put thousands of runners in harm's way because a few clergy oppose Sunday races? The safety and well-being of all marathon participants must come first. Certainly you see this. Many people could fall for the consequences of your actions. This LA Marathon represents a national stage, the dreams, desires, and dedications of those who were trained. There was never a time in my 44 marathons that churches did not support the race. Your decision has to be studied. It can be catastrophic. I speak from experience. Let the marathon officials and medical staff and those with experience plan a race that is safe for all runners. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. George Good is our next speaker. After that will be Mickey DiPaolo. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Good morning. My name is George Good. I'm a legacy runner, and I live in District 5, Councilman Weiss. I'm reading a letter that was written by two race directors, Larry and Nancy Durbin, who can't be here today. The conception and the execution of the first LA Marathon 24 years ago no doubt involved much research and planning that resulted in the selection of the first Sunday in March as the ideal LA Marathon date. It assumed that many things were taken into consideration with regard to the selecting of this particular date over others, including but not limited to weather, temperature trends, and the LA Marathon date in relation to other races that were already being staged in the LA area. From a runner's standpoint, the choice of the first Sunday in March made the LA Marathon an ideal race day for Southern California runners, hoping to be possibly late Boston qualifiers, and the March date also did not present any conflicts with any other Los Angeles area distance races in the calendar for 1986. The selection of Memorial Day for the 2009 LA Marathon appears to have not taken into consideration the dates of many other high-profile distant races in the LA areas would like to support.
Excuse me, Mr. Good. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have a lot of conversations going on. I'd like to ask everybody who has conversations to please move them outside on both sides. That applies to council staff and council members as well as to audience members. If it please take it out so we can hear the public comment today. Our apologies. Thank you, Mr. Good.
Thank you. This would not be limited to races such as the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon, which is in May, the Big Sur Marathon, and of course the Boston Marathon, which are both in April. Likewise, many small town distance races have been negatively affected by the new LA Marathon date, including the Fontana Half Marathon, which is in June, Palos Verde Marathon, and the Orange County Marathon in Brentwood, which is in June. In addition, races must be calendared many months in advance. And this would, of course, affect not once, but twice other races that are scheduled, I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Good. Mickey DiPaolo is our next speaker. After that is Eob Tesema.
Good morning. President Garcetti, Honorable Council, men and women. My name is Mickey DiPaolo. I'm from Burbank, California, and proud to be a legacy runner. The heat of the day on Memorial Day is bad enough, but my biggest contention is that it is on Memorial Day, and that's when we pause and remember the brave men and women who have died for our country. And my predicament, it's not a predicament, it's a choice I'm going to be making. I chair our Veterans Committee in Burbank, and we do a Memorial Day and Veterans Day ceremony every year. And I chair that committee, and what I plan on doing this Memorial Day is to run as many miles as I can to mile 13 to 15, have my son pick me up, take me back to Burbank, conduct the Memorial Day ceremony, come back down, and where I left off, finish the race. If I finish at mile 13, then I'll go from 13 to 26, but I will finish. But I would like you to reconsider and go back to the original first Sunday in March date. Most importantly to me, like I mentioned before, it's Memorial Day. And I think that's when everybody should pause and remember the brave men and women who served our country, not to be running a marathon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Eob Tesema is our next speaker, and after that is Ann Tack. Good morning.
Morning, President Garcetti, honorable members of the City Council, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. My name is Eob Tesema, and I'm a veteran pace leader for the Los Angeles Roadrunners and also a member of the Runners Advisory Council. I'm here before you today not so much to dwell on the most important aspect of why we should hold the LA Marathon back to the original date of March for health reasons, but also to emphasize the fact that the LA Marathon to this city of angels that we call home means a lot to the community at large. It is our annual citywide tour. We're weaving in and out of ethnic neighborhoods. It rejuvenates and unites us in one aspect, withholding the weather forecast that we have in store. And what I wanted to talk about today is not so much about what the marathon is as an Olympic event, not even so much what my ancestry has to do with the marathon race itself, but why, as a unison, the community comes together on that one day, and as enforcers of the unquantifiable unity that this city holds, it becomes your responsibility to make sure that the Los Angeles Marathon does not continue to have a black eye. In the extraordinary times that we live in, it's okay to make a mistake. And I urge you to see this year as an experiment, a failed experiment of holding it in May and resorting back to doing the right thing, putting it back where it belongs at the first weekend of March. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ann Tack is our next speaker. And then Cliff, can't quite read the name, I think it's Hausergo.
Good morning, President Garcetti and Honorable Councilman. I am a legacy runner, and I guess this is basically a mute subject as far as I wish that we had had the opportunity when this was first brought up about the churches, and that we would have gotten an opportunity to say our side of the story at that time. However, it is now going to be Memorial Day. I just want you to know that I guess I'm speaking mainly because of the legacy runners, and I don't know if you understand what a commitment it is for all of us every year to be on that starting line and hope that we can do another marathon. I personally am getting a little older, and it's harder, but we actually have lost, I shouldn't say lost, but I think a few had to drop out because of this change of date, because they had prior commitments that required them to do other things, mainly devoted to the fact that they wanted to do something on Memorial Day, which, as I believe, should be devoted to our veterans. I think that having it the first Sunday of March has been excellent. We have all come together. The legacy runners are definitely a family. We all want to stay together as long as we can. As far as running this marathon, we're all supportive of each other, and we feel that doing it Memorial Day is just going to be a really bad day for us to be there, and all runners in consideration because of the heat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tack. Cliff? And then after that will be John Burroughs. Excuse me for butchering your name. Is it Hausergo?
Hausergo, yes, sir.
Okay, got it right. Okay.
President Garcetti and members of the City Council, thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. My name is Cliff Hausergo, and I'm a legacy runner. I'd like to reiterate the health aspects of running the marathon in the heat. I saw a gentleman go down a year ago and ultimately died. And I think that the LA Marathon has been promoted as a somewhat of a consumer race. There are a lot of people there that are not in as good a condition as maybe they should be. Maybe they think they can, but I think that it could be very detrimental to the race. Also, as a Vietnam combat veteran, Memorial Day is a day to remember those people who have served this country, and I think that changing the date to May really disrupts those plans, and I sincerely hope that you will reconsider and move that date back to March 1st that has worked for so many years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. John Burroughs is our next speaker. After that is Jerry Robinson.
Good morning, my name is John Burroughs. I'm from Van Nuys, that's District 6. I've been a runner for 25 years, all over the world. The reason I'm coming today is when you had the September meeting, the priest that first spoke against the Sabbath Sabbath, or moving it to the Monday, was my priest. I was married in that church. My wife was baptized in that church. My entire family has been associated with the church for something like 40 years. He never spoke about that during Sunday Mass. He never talked about it during church fundraising committees. He came here basically on the secret. motioning a campaign to move the Sunday marathon to a Monday. I do understand their desire to move it from the Sunday. The marathon is a huge disruption to the church community. The marathon comes past church doors. It normally takes place during the Lent Easter period. It does stop churches raising funds. It can be, though, a solution. If you increase the administration fee or entry fee for entering the marathon by $10 and taking that $10 per entrance and dividing it up amongst the churches that are passed by the marathon course, I'm sure the churches will be very happy. You could also have a solution whereby churches are allowed to raise funds, sponsorship. They can have charity entrance teams, a church team running in the event, all raises money for charity or raises money for themselves. Another solution would be to allow churches to have free tickets, basically free entrance places. They could then raise those or raffle those in the church community to runners so they can keep the proceeds for themselves. Basically, the idea is to create a system of community spirit with the churches, not to stand in opposition to them, but to stand side by side with them to raise money for them and allow the runners of Los Angeles to have a marathon that's both desirable and pleasurable. We have one of the largest cities in the country. We have one of the worst marathons in the country. We're beaten by such cities as Carlsbad, Pasadena, Santa Clarita, San Diego. LA is one of the largest cities in the union, should have one of the best marathons in the entire country. We don't. If we can move the marathon back to a Sunday in the early, late winter, it would be beneficial for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jerry Robinson is our next speaker. After that is John Butcher.
Yes, my name is John Butcher. I live in Silver Lake and in Mr. Lavange's district. I'm a legacy runner, which means I've run all 23 prior marathons. I've run a dozen or so others, including New York, Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, Portland, Honolulu, Madrid. My issue is with regard to the potential for heat. In 2004, we had a heat wave. And even though I'm an experienced runner, and not an elite runner, but an experienced runner, at mile 25 I dropped from dehydration. I had to be hauled by paramedics to a hospital. I had 3 IVs running to get me back to normal. I literally thought I was going to die. I don't know how many hours I was there, but when I was finished, I got a taxi. I went back down to mile 25 and finished the marathon in over 11 hours. My point is, I'm an example of somebody who knows how to prepare, knows when to drink, knows how to run a marathon, and yet I dropped. If you continue to schedule this for late May, when the potential for heat is so much greater than it is in early March, you're going to find less experienced runners dropping all over the place, and the reputation of LA as a people's marathon is going to decline and be, frankly, a joke. So my point is, please move the marathon back to March when the weather is better for all runners, elite and everyday runners that are encouraged to run in the LA Marathon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Butcher is our next speaker. After that is Scott Klein.
This is going to be short. My name is Jerry Robinson. I'm in Bill Rosenthal's district, and I'm a legacy runner. And the point I want to bring across is that originally the marathon was established for March 1st. Applications went out, was sent out, and a lot of plans were made. It wasn't until, August, September timeframe when they made this change, far after the plans that have already been made for the date that you've now established, which is May. And I'm affected because we're going to Europe next week, and that's going to greatly affect my training. I am going to do the marathon, but I'm sacrificing a good month's preparation. There's no way I'm going to be able to prepare for this, and the repercussions of the date change is quite dramatic, not only on myself, but on many other people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Scott Klein.
Morning, Council. I'm Scott Klein. I want especially to address the clergy. Please consider that all of the runners are God's children too. I'm asking you to bear a little more traffic, suffer a slightly longer walk, one Sunday a year, in order to help protect the health of 20,000 runners who are trying to accomplish a life-changing goal. The LA Marathon is a special event in an extremely diverse community and pulls all races, religions, and social levels together for at least a day. Gandhi, Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, and God must all be proud of their children during a marathon that functions as the very definition of brotherly love. People of all kinds are cheering for and helping one another. From rich to poor, fast to slow, black to white, young to old, all are pulling together. The marathon helps people of all ages, especially children, prove to themselves that they have the power through long dedication toward a goal to achieve what seemed impossible. More than 3,000 troubled children participate each year with the help of Students Run LA. The confidence and courage of these children is strengthened for all of the rest of their lives. Aren't they alone worth the extra minutes to get to worship? I wish I could help the congregations realize the danger created in their name. The well-being, comfort, and health of volunteers, police, firemen, spectators, and all of the runners will be put at risk for many hours. For myself as a legacy runner and veteran of dozens of other events, I know what to do to protect my health, and I will be fine. But LA has a high percentage of first-time participants. How many more will have to be helped with heat-related health problems? Will the extra heat stress send anyone to the morgue? Clergy, please. I have to believe that you are good people and the ramifications of your actions were simply not thought out to their end. What would God want you to do?
Thank you all very much. That was our last speaker for the marathon folks. Under the Brown Act, we can't, because it wasn't agendized today, we can't respond very fully, but we've interpreted about an under 50-word response, and I know Mr. Labange wants to say something briefly, and Mr. Rosendahl, and Ms. Hahn would like to, but please, I would reiterate that we can agendize this for a more extensive council member response, but I want to recognize Mr. Labange for a brief response.
Mr. President, Mr. City Attorney, can I inform the public that because of the efforts of Ms. Hahn and Mr. Rosendahl and myself, we're introducing a motion to ask that this race be returned to a Sunday in the early part of the year? Mr. City Attorney, is it okay that I say that?
Yes, it's yes, okay. Yes.
That's all you say. But can I repeat it?
I think it was heard loud and clear. Mr. Rosendahl?
Yes, Mr. President, and also, Mr. City Attorney, not to query the deal, we've had meetings with a lot of these gentlemen here, and frankly, I think the city itself made a mistake that they weren't brought in the room when the discussion was held way back when. It's our fault, and I take responsibility as well for that, but it's a compelling set of arguments that they make, so I hope we can reconsider all this.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Ms. Hahn? Ms. Hahn?
Thank you. Well, I too believe it was a big mistake, but I was one of those that voted no on the idea of changing it.
This is becoming a discussion.
Okay, but I just want you to know that it has been a great tradition in Los Angeles. Nothing was broken, so I don't know why we tried to fix it.
Mr. Parks?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to add some clarity to this, and although we shouldn't let the law get in the way, this race was not something that the city moved to Memorial Day. The city has a contract with the vendor that owns the race till 2015, in which the language specifically says on a holiday, on a Monday holiday, the race should be held. It didn't cause it to be moved to from the original date to Memorial Day. That was a decision made by the vendor, which they're under a...
Hold on, please. Hey, excuse me. Members of the audience, please. We will not have shouts out. We can meet with folks, but please, we'll keep order in the chambers.
The reason I know that is that we worded the contract, and so the issue is that it's on a holiday Monday. It was not the issue of the city of Los Angeles. It moved it to Memorial Day. It was the vendor who owns the race, in which we have a contract through 2015. So just want to get the facts out so people know as to who made the decision and who they have to go to in the sense of that contract.
We should not get into the debate of the substance of this. We have brief responses only to the public comments that have been made here today. Mr. City Attorney,
That is correct, Mr. President. This item is not on today's agenda. There can only be a brief response. I fear that this is becoming a discussion, and so council members should limit their comments.
A very brief response, Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you. I'm not going to speak to the substance of the matter, but I am going to thank Councilmember Bernard Parks for clarifying some of the facts. So thank you so much for doing that. A lot of people are not in the room. A lot of people are watching throughout the city, and I would hate for them to think that, what was said today, a lot of truth is what was brought up today, but it's good that we clarify where, in fact, the responsibilities lie. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Labange, I think we're over the limit to do that.
But can this go to Trade and Tourism Committee?
We will we'll refer it to the appropriate committee. We promise.
Trade and Tourism.
Well, it may be, but we'll refer it to the appropriate committee. That's our prerogative to do. Okay? Anybody else briefly responding on this? If not, we will continue on public comment. Ms. Perry needs to take item number 30 right now out of order, but anybody who still has their comment card for general public comment, we're now at 47 minutes of public comment, which is well over the 20 minutes or so that we have as standard. So we will return to anybody who has general public comments, but I'd like to recognize Ms. Perry and take up item number 30 right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, before us today is a 15% water rate increase. This increase is a commodity charge that is a conservation tool that acknowledges the 3-year drought we are still in and the governor's call to the state of California, the governor's call that we are in a state of emergency. The Metropolitan Water District, who is the major water supplier for the city of LA, uses snowpack runoff as our major source of water, and this supply has been reduced significantly over the last few years. Last year, our council approved a water rate ordinance that would allow DWP to increase water rates in the event of a drought. This action is subsequent to the adoption of the ordinance, and we are, in fact, in an emergency drought situation, which allows the department to adjust rates accordingly. However, to fully understand the implications of this increase, especially in financial times as we are in, it's important for the council to have the appropriate time to review the new charges and discuss it with our respective constituencies. So I am hereby requesting or making a motion that the city attorney draft an ordinance to give the council the ability to have at minimum 30 days to review and decide on future commodity rate increases, and to have the Department of Water and Power report quarterly with updates regarding any new charges to the Energy and Environment Committee. If I could have a second on that. Thank you.
We have a second on that as well. Just as a point of business real quick before I forget, can we reconsider 11 and put that on the queue too for Mr. Reyes, and then we'll take this up. Mr. Smith and Mr. Zine will be our next speakers. Mr. Smith, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on 11, reconsideration, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Call that special for Mr. Reyes. We'll go back to 30. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could have department staff come forward, please. Hold the time. I'll make the proposal for the pass-through. Thank you very much. And as you're being seated, originally when I heard this, I, like many citizens of LA, said, well, wait a minute, we've seen tremendous storms in the north. We've seen a lot of rain in LA, more than maybe the last couple of years. Why is there still a shortage? And there's a good answer to that, and I'd like you, for the public, to tell them why we've had snow in Northern California. It's not the right kind of snow, and that the snowpack has not been leveled across the northern state, and that what are the levels of the reserves that we have in Northern California, if you could, and hold my time.
All right. My name is Jim McDaniel. I'm the Assistant General Manager for Water for the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Thank you, Councilman. As you pointed out, we are in a water supply shortage in Southern California. The statewide... Oh, I can let Mr. Nahai respond to the question.
Council President Garcetti, members of the City Council, good morning. I apologize for being a little late to the table. My name is David Nahai, and I'm privileged to serve as the General Manager and CEO of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. I have at the table with me Jim McDaniel, who heads the water system. To my left is Jeff Peltola, our Chief Financial Officer. To Jeff's left is Dave Hotchkiss of the City Attorney's Office. And to my far right is Greg Black, who is in charge of our rates budget and rates area. And be more than pleased to respond to any questions you have.
The first question was, I, like many citizens, were thinking, as I heard these proposals come forward, that we're going to have mandatory rationing of water, that it was unnecessary. That we've had a good rain this year, maybe not be El Nino type rains, but a good rain. We've heard about the big storms in Northern California, but the storms in Northern California weren't the right kind of snow. And if you could explain water content and the relationship, and then also the status of the reservoirs in the north, particularly the inland reservoirs, other than just our water source, which is our reservoir system, but also the MWD system, which has precipitated a lot of this issue.
Thank you, Council Member. Well, let me first say you're absolutely right, that it isn't really the amount of snow, it is the water content of the snow that counts. And in looking at all of the courses at the present time in the Eastern Sierras, we're running 30% below normal. And that's worse than where we were last year, I believe, at this time. Regarding the reservoirs, they continue to be in rather sorry shape. Metropolitan is down to, I believe, having just about 1 million acre-feet in storage above emergency levels.
And 1 million means nothing to most people. What does it mean in percentage of their capacity?
I'll leave that to Jim to respond in terms of... It's gone down steadily over the last few years.
It's gone down significantly. Metropolitan has invested, and I should point out that we do have Jeff Keitlinger, the General Manager of Metropolitan Water District, here today, and he can answer questions for you also. But Metropolitan has invested significantly in groundwater storage. They had about 4 million acre-feet of storage available when this situation started. We've been steadily drawing on that over the last 4 years. We're down from that 4 million down to about 1 million acre-feet of storage.
So about a 75% reduction in capacity in that. Okay.
And to stress this point further, I was speaking with Mr. Keitlinger earlier on today. Met staff is recommending to the board a 10% cutback for all member agencies. That is a mandatory cutback that we're all going to have to respect. That vote will be taken next Tuesday, and everybody anticipates that it will pass handily.
And some 20 years ago, when Mr. LaBonge and I started, and Mr. Hernandez, others, the city of LA got about 20% of its water from MWD. What is it today?
I think we're looking around the region of about 60%.
So 60% of our water supply is going to be cut by 10%.
Yes.
And then within our own reservoir system, what is the reduction of capacity been over the last couple of years there?
And the reduction, again, you can point this out if you want.
Well, when I first started with the department in the early 80s, we used to get about 75% of our water from the Eastern Sierra, our LA Aqueduct supplies. Now in an average year, not a year like this because we're below average this year, but in an average year we get about half that. This year we only expect to get about 150,000 acre-feet, so that's a third of what we used to get. We used to get 450. Now we're looking at about 150 this year.
So the bottom line for people to understand is there's a reduction in capacity at MWD, which used to be our backup. It is now the majority of our water. And our own system, which was built in the early 1900s, is no longer creating the amount of water we need. Some of that's because of the restoration programs we have in the valley. Some of it's because it's just a reduction of water content. So there's just less water in both capacities, both our city capacity and MWD's capacity.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Yes, and the Metropolitan Water District is facing an 80% cutback of its water supply from the State Water Project, from the Sacramento Delta, because of the rather intractable environmental challenges that the Delta faces right now. So all of these things, this is like a confluence of events, a kind of perfect storm of water shortage, which has led us to this table today.
Okay. And I wanted to get that out there so people understand the nature of it, because I'm probably a little better informed, I think, than probably most people on these issues, because I watch you guys. But I assume that we were doing well because we had a good season this year. It was seemed like it was going well. Rain was good and snowpack seemed good, but it's not as it appears, and that's the point we want to get off. Two questions I have for you while I still have some time left, and a concern for the San Fernando Valley, Mr. Zine, myself, Mr. Cardenas, Ms. Gruhl, those of us, Mr. Labange, Mr. Weiss, those who represent the valley, have always had a concern about the higher temperatures, the need for more water in the valley. How has that been taken into account in this proposal so that is recognized in your calculations?
Well, we all of us have in the city a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 rate. The Tier 1 and the Tier 2 rates take into account already things such as lot size, temperature zones, family size. This was a very elaborate a system of rates that was put into place in the very early 1990s, 1991 or 1992. This proposal doesn't touch that. What this proposal says is that everybody's Tier 1 rate, whatever that is, the upper ceiling of that rate is going to be lowered by 15%. So those of us who are already using below 15% of the upper limit of Tier 1 will see no effect at all. It is only those who are using at the very upper limit of their Tier 1, whatever their Tier 1 is, or who are exceeding their Tier 1, that will have to pull back to 15% below the upper limit of their Tier 1 in order to see no increase.
So it's in the formula, and it affects everybody equally across the city, but those in the valley already have a special rate calculation to offset that. And that doesn't change.
I hesitate to use the word special, but it takes into account the circumstances of valley residents.
Okay, so that's the important thing for those that live in the valley to understand. Nothing changes in your calculation other than we're asking everybody across the city to reduce this an equal amount. And you've already gotten you don't want to use a special, I'll use the word special, a special adjustment because of where you live and the high temperatures. That's taken into account. So
yes.
That's fair and that's equitable. And finally, there's an issue, and I was discussing with your staff earlier, as it deals to apartments. And a good 60% of the city or so is apartment buildings, and yet we're asking them to reduce. Yet the apartment renters, people that live in those apartments, aren't the person responsible for the bill. They get charged off because they're mostly master metered. And so it's the apartment owner who bears the responsibility for the actions of the people that live in those apartments. And that is not a fair way to do it. So I am going to be asking that this council add into this proposal a requirement that any adjustments that are made to an apartment building because they're over their rate, and they're going to get a surcharge if it comes out 2.5%, that they allow a pass-through to the renters for that adjustment, and that Water and Power also be required to go out and meet with the tenants and teach them about water conservation to try and get them to comply and remove that penalty, basically. And so that's going to be my recommendation, that we allow a pass-through and that we instruct Water and Power to meet with those tenants wherever a owner would call up and say, I'm being penalized because of those folks, please come meet with them.
Well, allow me to respond to the general point, and then I know that Mr. Hotchkiss, I think, has a legal point to bring up. But regarding the apartment owners, we very, very much recognize the issue, and we've been talking about how we can move forward with sub-metering in order to provide tenants directly with a view of how much water they're utilizing. We're committed to reach out to apartment owners, to talk to them. As you just pointed out, they're not being treated in the same way as single-family residential customers. They're being treated as business customers.
But separate metering is a very expensive proposition.
We're a little bit over time.
Okay.
Just so you know, also on the report, we had a motion that was to add an incentive for those apartment buildings to be rewarded with a better rate that do. So it's the kind of the carrot of that, and also an investigation of the stick piece of how the pass-through could happen. So that's included in the report piece, not the meeting with tenants, though. So if you'd like to add that, we can add that as well. Okay. Without objection, we'll add that as well. Mr. Zine is our next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hold my time, please, on the questions. Public education. What kind of public education is going to be done on this particular matter?
Oh, I'm sorry, Council Member. I didn't catch your question.
We're not holding your time, David, only my time. Public education. What kind of public education, other than the consumer getting the bill? What kind of public education are we doing outreach to the consumers of Los Angeles? And please hold my time.
The Public Affairs Department just handed me a list of all of the public education events and steps that are going to be taken in connection with this matter. And of course, oh, here it is. Thank you, Joe. Well, Joe, would you like to respond to this question?
There's many hot seats, so whichever one's comfortable.
This is Joe Ramallo, who heads our public affairs area.
Good morning. We actually held our first workshop with neighborhood councils on March 14th. In addition to that, a rate notification letter will be sent to every customer explaining the new shortage year rates system that will go into effect June 1st.
Well, explain why we're doing that.
Well, we're doing it to make sure our residents know that this is not intended to in any way penalize them. It's intended to compel conservation.
But are we going to explain why we need to conserve?
Yes.
The fact is the smelt fish and all the other issues that come up?
Right. So we have a rate notification letter that will go to every single customer that will explain the rates and also the context. A standalone bill insert will also be sent, not just the normal connections, but a standalone that will be in every single bill alerting them to this mandatory conservation measure.
Mr. President, you're running my time. And he's talking. Yeah, no, don't do that to me. Thank you.
We'll also have comprehensive information posted online, which will include an explanation of the shortage year rates, the reason that we have implemented them, a tool to determine what your allocation, your Tier 1 allocation is with the 15% reduction, and also frequently asked questions for different types of customers, commercial customers, multifamily, as well as single-family residents.
So someone who wants to know their tier, there will be an explanation how you determine the tier that you're in?
Yes. Approximately May 1st, we'll have that information available online as well as through our customer service representatives.
Okay.
Various printed materials as well as other advertising vehicles will be used. I can go into more detail if you'd like.
The recycling aspect, are we going to do anything to increase recycling where we have majority of the water hitting the ocean, not being recycled? When we look around golf courses, athletic fields, Griffith Park, Tom LaBonge loves Griffith Park, I love Griffith Park, the water that is going to Griffith Park, I know we're doing something with recycling, but very minimal. Are we doing anything to increase the recycling to help compensate for this lack of water?
Oh, very much. It's a principal focus of the department, and one of the main strategies of the mayor's water supply plan for the city will be increasing recycling at least sixfold over the next 2 decades. But we need to move very aggressively towards recycling, and it's something that's very high on my agenda. We just had Playa Vista just came online with recycling. It is the first example of a residential development using recycling water for irrigation purposes, and there'll be many more. And of course, we have to continue to roll out the program at our parks and our golf courses as well.
Okay, and unlike the disaster that occurred with the solar proposal, neighborhood councils came out vigorously opposing that measure. What are we doing to outreach aggressively to neighborhood councils to inform them, to educate them? We've got 90 neighborhood councils throughout the city. What are we doing to inform them so they don't come out opposed to this and understand the logic and the reason behind it? Back on the hot seat, Joe.
Sure. Council member, to respond to that, we've held an initial workshop with neighborhood councils to explain the shortage year rates to them, how they work. We also have representatives that will be going out to every neighborhood council meeting beginning in April through the end of May in order to make them aware of this, to tell them how they can save water, why we're doing this, and where they can go to find the information, and to share that information with them about their new water budget, if you will.
And now with the development, as we see there's developments that are continuing in the city of Los Angeles, how do we force those new developments to have a separate meter? If it's a condo, they have a separate meter. If it's an apartment, they don't. How do we compel them to have separate so we can account and we can hold those tenants responsible? Jim Clark, the executive director from the Apartment Owners Association, has a valid concern. Apartment owners have no control over what their tenants use in water. And with new development, how do we then force those developers to put in that separate metered system? Or are we working in that arena?
We are. We have a water team that meets on a weekly basis, and sub-metering for new development is one of the items under consideration. We're looking at issues such as physical constraints, such as additional financial commitments that would have to be made to put in that system. But I believe that eventually we have to at least do it for new development. So we're trying to move in that direction.
And then finally, the issue of the consumers thinking that it doesn't really exist. We increase the rates, but then there are years when we'll have the water flow more than ever, and we never reduced the rates. What is there in this to give us an opportunity if we do have the snowpack that's 120% and tremendous rainfall, as we know happens every 10 or 20 or 30 years, whatever the case may be, to have a component where the rates will come down because we've had an excess amount of water?
Well,
do we have a provision in there to say, you know what, we're going up, but also, folks, in the event we have additional water, additional rainfall, additional snowpack, those rates can come down. A protection clause for the consumers to give them the other side of the coin. Now we'll hear from the attorney.
Yeah, Councilmember David Hotchkiss, City Attorney's Office. The ordinance specifically provides for just that eventuality. To the extent that the water supply is restored and becomes available, it vests in the discretion of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners to retrench on the shortage year rates to whatever factor is appropriate to meet the water that is available. So it can go all the way back to its present state, hypothetically, if there's sufficient snowpack and water placed back in storage.
And that's a part of this proposal?
That's in the ordinance, sir. It's already there.
Yeah. And I just wanted to stress one other point, Council Member, if I may. This is not a rate increase. This is not rates going up.
Well, it may not be considered a rate increase to you, David, but when the consumer is paying more, they consider a rate increase. It's a penalty for not conserving. I understand that. But when they see that bill that goes from $200 to $250, they look at that as a rate increase, even though it's a penalty for using excess water. Mr. President, I'm almost done. So I understand your logic and semantics. The bottom line is if they're paying more, they look at it as a rate increase. And if they conserve water, then they will remain where they are or lower. Hopefully, they can reduce that, leaving that tier 1. And I understand, because we discussed the tier factor, we will educate the public on the tier factor.
Yeah, I think we must.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your indulgence of my extra time.
Absolutely. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I have a few questions. Last year, when the Department of Power brought forward the rate increase, I asked for a report back on restructuring of water rates to better address equity issues. I still haven't seen that report, and I'd like to know when we'll be able to see that information. And it leads to my next question. It's been said already in public comment. There are many folks who are very diligent about the water usage. Folks who took out their vast green lawns and put in native plants. They restructured how they live for water conservation. Now we're going to essentially ask them to conserve even more after their standard have been reset. So I just want to make sure that we're not penalizing people that were cooperating in the past, and now this special comes in, and now we're going to take a different standard. That's how I'm interpreting what's being said. So if I'm wrong, please correct it. If I'm right, please clarify how we're not penalizing people for going native, for taking out those vast green lawns, who are essentially looking at native plants, and who are essentially dealing with the pools and that such. So please hold my time when we get the answer.
Okay, but a couple of comments in response to that. First, just yesterday, the Board of Commissioners approved a rebate system for folks who will put in drought-resistant plants.
May I say that again?
Just yesterday, the Board of Commissioners approved a rebate measure for people who replace their lawns with drought-resistant landscaping. This was just passed yesterday, and I very much wanted to do that because at the same time, as we're asking people to go to 2 days watering a week, which is phase 3, which will be coming before you, at the same time as we're moving forward with this concept, we want to make sure that people have the rebates as well to replace their outdoor landscaping. But in answer to your first question, people who are already conserving will not be penalized. Because if they're already lower than 15% of their upper limit, this will not affect them at all.
When was that upper limit identified? Like, how do you gauge that?
Okay. The upper limit issue comes to your very first question about the restructuring of the rates, which Greg will respond to. But those tiers, Tier 1 and Tier 2, were established back in the early 1990s, 1991 and 1992. Every customer in Los Angeles received a Tier 1 and a Tier 2. There are 15 classifications of it. This measure doesn't change that. So if you're using below 15% of your upper limit of your tier 1, this will not affect you. That's why people who are already, who've already changed their plants, who aren't using a great deal of landscape irrigation, they're not going to be adversely affected by this. And let's also remember that on the residential side, 40% of water use is outdoors. So by going to 2 days a week, by taking advantage of the plethora of rebates that people can find on ladwp.com, it, I believe, hopefully should not be too difficult to get 15% below the upper level of Tier 1.
See, and it was those original tiers a year ago where we asked you, the organization, to visit to address the equity issues. I'm hoping I'll get an answer, at least verbally right now.
Councilmember, we have been studying that, and our plans is to come back to the board in May of this year, May of 2009, with our restructured water rates, which is, I think, what you're talking about. And that will start the discussion with the neighborhood councils and begin the 120-day period required by the neighborhood council MOU on those restructured rates. And back to the point of the Tier 1, the Tier 1 was developed specifically for landscaping technologies in the early 90s. And part of what we're looking at is reviewing that and going to California drought-tolerant landscaping and what would those volumes be, and that will be where we'll have the discussion. We're also reviewing the temperature study that was utilized, and we should be receiving that within this month, and what the draft shows us that it's minimal changes on those temperature zones that were developed in the early 90s as well.
So my request a year ago is going to surface in May.
In May, we have been studying it and doing the analysis, and in May is when we'll be coming out with our proposal that will start the discussion with neighborhood councils.
Okay. And when I look at this question about how it impacts renters and sub-meters, I need to put this into context. Just over 60% of the city are renters. In my district, it's just over 80%. At the same time, we have 4 to 5 council districts where close to half of those districts are at or below poverty, on top of everything else that they're going through in these hard economic times. So I'd like to understand, how are we going to address those realities when in fact many of the property owners in my district don't live in the district, and for the most part don't even live in the city. So they use our apartments as ATM machines. They pull money out, but they don't bring it back in. So here we're going to layer in possibly another fee or raise rates, but are we really weighing these factors that impact their daily lives? I know we have to pay for the water. I understand we're in dire straits, but I want to make sure all of these variables are on the table and understand what the city of LA is actually composed of.
I completely understand, and this is why we have to work very diligently with the apartment owners to make sure that they're treated fairly and that their renters are treated fairly as well, knowing that we cannot just go and wholesale retrofit all of the existing apartment buildings. But also the fact that we also all have to understand is that we have to cut back. We have to cut back. We're going to be getting a 10% allocation from the Metropolitan Water District. That's a 10% reduction right there. We've got an 80% reduction from the State Water Project. If we don't cut back, we will all pay more.
No, believe me, I understand how serious this is. What I'm concerned with is that we approach this policy in traditional manner, we continue to overlook and not recognize the equity issue. When you look at the range of lifestyles, when I go through certain neighborhoods and I see vast square footage of very needy grass lawns that require a lot of water, then I see other folks going through native plants. There's a difference there.
Specifically targeted.
And then when you learn that most of the folks who have these places don't even live in the city because they're renting them out, there has to be a way of correlating those variables. So I'll stop and I'm over. I'll push my button again.
Okay, Mr. Rosendahl?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a very important discussion here. This will impact us. Now, one of my colleagues told me 15% of the folks fit within that bracket. Or how many people will be impacted when we go into these tier systems? That's the big issue for all of us, because our rates are going to go up in a certain way. Our bill means it's going to go up.
Well, maybe if I could just go
Hold my time. Thank you.
Go through a couple of the data points. In the total volume of sales that the Department of Water and Power has, roughly 88% of all of the water we sell is in Tier 1.
80% is what?
88% is sold in the Tier 1 or the lower category.
88% is in the Tier 1 category.
Correct.
So that's 12%. Okay.
12% is in the higher category.
All right.
And the analysis that we've done and transmitted to the CAO's office, if we look at, and I'll just go through each quick one, we assumed a 15% reduction. How many customers would see an increase, or how many customers would be the same or go down? So in low-income, single-family residential customers, 94% would see no increase or a reduction. And Lifeline, we'd have 97% of the customers would see no increase or see a reduction. Single-family residential customers, excluding the two classes we just talked about, which is, I think, the data you're talking.
Explain the two classes again.
One was low income and one is Lifeline, which is our two classes that we have. And then the single-family residential customers, 85% of the customers should see no change or their bill go down if they do the 15%.
The 15% that will possibly see it go up, what are they doing that makes it go up, and what should they do so it doesn't go up?
Okay. Do you want to respond to that?
I just want to clear up one misconception that this is a 15% increase. It's not a 15% increase. Actually, what's going to happen is that the rate that you pay, the volumetric per unit rate for Tier 1 does not change at all.
Does not change. Right.
What happens is the amount of water you're allowed to purchase in Tier 1 is going to go down by 15%. So it's not a 15% rate increase.
But if I get a bill that's higher than it was last period, because this will go into effect in June, what do I need to do right now to prepare myself so it doesn't go up?
Okay. You can call the LADWP call center, find out what your Tier 1 is, and therefore, find out what your usage is and know how much you need to save to be 15% below.
The DWP, what's the phone number they would call?
It's 1-800-LADWP.
No, dial DWP.
It's 1-800-DIAL-DWP.
Okay. It is very important for the person hearing this. Could we have silence around here? If I want to know what my bill is, and what I need to do to protect and prepare myself for this new measure, I call 1-800, what's the rest of it?
Dial DWP.
Dial DWP.
Dial DWP.
Okay, do we have the numbers here? Can somebody find them? I mean, not everybody has got that act together.
Yeah, we'll provide it to you.
We would like that, but we'd like you to say it publicly so people know. I could take my bill, I could call that number, and they would tell me what?
They would tell you what your Tier 1 allotment is, what your usage is, at least for the last billing period, and you would know from there what amount of usage you need to reduce in order to get to that 15% threshold below the upper limit of your Tier 1. Also, on May 1st, you'll be able to go to ladwp.com and type in your address, and possibly either your address or your name, and it'll come up on the screen and tell you again what your Tier 1 allotment is, what your usage is, and you'll be able to know what you need to cut back to be at that 15% below the upper limit level. Plus, we have now distributed, about over a million of these wheels, together with the CFLs. We distributed 2.4 million CFLs, and in each of those bags, about 1.2 million of them, there was this wheel, and this teaches people how to save water. In addition to that, if they'll just go to ladwp.com and look on the rebates window, they will find rebates for clothes washers, for this new landscape rebate that I just talked about, and a number of other rebates as well, where LADWP will actually pay them to put in new appliances in order to save money, and that'll help them reduce as well. And on top of that, council member, when hopefully this august body will approve phase 3, under phase 3 we're asking people to water outside only 2 days a week, only on Mondays and Thursdays. And if they do that, again, acknowledging that 40% of water use is because of outdoor irrigation on the residential side, just that should help everybody meet the requirements of this.
When you say water 2 days a week, you don't want us to water, though, between 9 o'clock and 4 o'clock, correct?
Correct.
Period.
Yes, except I believe the exception may be hand watering, but sprinklers, yes, none at all.
Because I know my Mar Vista crowd is having an event on the 26th. You might not know this, but there are dozens and dozens of homes in the last 6 months that have changed, as Mr. Reyes was saying. They've gone native with their plants. And we're having a tour, and people can go to Mar Vista Green Garden Showcase.blogspot.com, and they can actually see that on the 26th, hundreds of Mar Vista residents are going to look at other people's front yards, how they were able to go into the new day, which we're a desert, right? I mean, our green lawns, I love green lawns. That's something we're going to be challenged with, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, if we do this, do we still have to go into some of these other steps if the drought continues?
Well, we hope not. We hope that there are two strategies that are being pursued here. One is short-term, getting over this acute crisis. This is what 2 days of watering, this is what the shortage year rates are all about. And as Dave Hotchkiss just pointed out, once this is over, the ordinance itself provides for a pullback. But apart from this, we have to think long-term in this city. That's why conservation in terms of, endemic measures, such as building differently, recycling wastewater, cleaning up our aquifer, capturing our rainfall, underground storage programs. These are things that we must implement for the long-term health of the city.
Yeah.
Because this is not the last time this is going to happen to us.
Tons of people say to me, Rosendahl, you live on the beach. Why can't you take that water, that ocean water, and do something about it? What is our answer to that whole desalinization issue?
I'll say this. It may be, quite frankly, that at some point in the future of the city we will have no choice but to turn to the ocean. But now is not that day. Right now we're in a situation where we treat wastewater, about 400,000 acre-feet of it, to a very high degree only to dump it in the ocean. Let's try to reclaim that first. We waste 60% of our rainfall. Let's try to get that back first. We still have a lot of improvement on the conservation side. Let's do that first. We have a vast underground aquifer which we've allowed to be contaminated. Let's clean that up first. And we can move to underground, we can build differently as well. Once we've done all of those things, if we then find ourselves in the position of a country like Israel, which already recycles 70 to 75% of its wastewater and has no choice but to turn to the ocean, then perhaps. But today, we've got many, many other things that we should be doing first. Desal still remains the most expensive water treatment process, the most energy intensive. It still produces a brine. It requires very large footprint construction to produce the water. There's still problems that have to be overcome, but we don't need to go there yet.
Okay, last thing I want to say is this, the Delta. Okay, I'm scared to death that we're going to have an earthquake up there and the Delta's going to fall apart and we're not going to get any water. And the governor has not focused enough on it to us to repair our levees up there. What do we think about the Delta and what we need to do right now?
Well, LADWP is on record with the position that the ecosystem of the Delta must be restored and its health must be protected. And unless that is the case, we're going to find ourselves in this position for a very long time. So I believe Southern California, I know that MWD believes this as well, that Southern California has a duty to be at that table, not just asking for water, but being a constructive part of the discussion as to how we protect the Delta and how we ensure that the water is brought down south in a way that is not detrimental to the long-term health of the Delta or the other considerations such as seismic safety and so on, which you just
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Ms. Perry, before we go on with the hearing.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yesterday this was in committee, and we had a very difficult conversation between representatives of DWP and some of our committee members, and some of the committee members raised some excellent questions on timing, on when the report hit the mayor's office, how long it stayed there, and why we are up against purported time frames now. MWD is coming out with their proposal next week. I know that Jeff Keitlinger, General Manager of the Metropolitan Water District, is here today. Mr. Huizar has a motion on the table. I've got a motion on the table. There may be other motions to be made. I suggest that we bundle this all back together and let me take it back into committee again. We are not going to be able to resolve these differences here on the council floor today. It is far too complicated, and I think we still need to drill down a bit deeper. Now, that doesn't mean we don't accept certain realities. We accept the fact that we are in a state of emergency. We accept the fact that we do need to conserve, and that the snowpack that we have to date is still insufficient. So this is not an attempt to fail to be a conservationist or to undermine the efforts of the department. But I think there are enough legitimate concerns that were raised yesterday and today that I would like to continue the matter and put a placeholder in for next Wednesday, whatever date that is.
Next week is the 15th. However, I believe on this item there is a time limit, and council needs to disapprove this by today. Otherwise, it's deemed approved, I believe.
Okay. Well,
Mr. City Attorney?
If we...
That's my understanding also.
Can you hold my time, please?
David Hotchkiss, City Attorney.
We didn't have your time on before.
Under this statutory scheme, as approved previously by the City Council, the way that this system works is that the Board of Water and Power Commissioners declares a shortage situation and picks the applicable shortage rate, here 15%, to be applied as a price signal to the consumer in an effort to reduce consumption. There is also an obligation on the part of the board to set a date no less than 15 days upon which the council and the mayor are required to act, but only in one way. The council and the mayor can disapprove this by the date certain selected by the Board of Water and Power Commissioners. That date was set by board resolution as the 9th of April, and unless there is a vote to disapprove this, I'm sorry, the 8th of April. Unless there's a vote to disapprove it on that date, then it will become effective.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney. I do appreciate that explanation. It's extremely helpful. So my recommendation today would be to vote to disapprove and afford us the opportunity to send it back.
Mr. Garcetti, before we...
Can I also just make a comment, just for clarification? The matter that is in the mayor's office at the present time has to do with the implementation under the Water Conservation Ordinance of restrictions on outside watering or external utilization of water. In other words, what's pending now is basically limiting watering outside 2 days a week. That is not the issue that is before you today. The issue before you today is the implementation of shortage year rates.
Right. And just one clarification as well, colleagues. I think this underscores, and it's not the department's fault so much, but the importance when you set those dates, it goes to the mayor and the council. Council can't begin its consideration until we get that file from the mayor's office. And it took much longer than it should have. So I just want to point that out as well, because that's, excuse me? I don't know, I heard it was like 21 days, something like that.
I think that's the misunderstanding. What you're referring to, Councilmember, is the mayor has in his office the issue of the limitation on external watering, not this issue. This issue went to the mayor's office and to the council simultaneously, and you have independent authority to reject this.
All right. Well, then on that one, then I think that may be the only way forward with a short notice. I think with the public speaking, not getting a lot of time to, I mean, our process is so compressed by that. You know, and when we look at that in the future, we may need to look at a larger time period if we can statutorily, because of this is the process where the public gets involved, and they need to be involved.
Madam Clerk, I hadn't used my time up.
No, we hadn't originally. We didn't use your time at all, and then we only had about 30 seconds that we used on your time. So when you first spoke, we did not have a clock running at all. So would you like to continue, Ms.?
I just wanted to reiterate that I had this motion on the table here. and motion to disapprove and send it back.
There is
I
a
believe I had a
motion that
second.
has been seconded.
Point of order.
Yes.
I'd like to make a verbal motion so they can come back with some information. By voting on this, does that disallow a verbal motion, or can I make it before we take that vote?
It does not.
Okay.
It does not disallow. You can ask them to report back when they come back. So the item before us now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 people on the queue. But Ms. Perry has asked that we disapprove this at this point in time, and to have it sent back to committee, and then be coming back to the City Council. So, Madam Clerk,
Could I make a friendly amendment to that? What's the proper procedure to do a friendly amendment? Ms. Perry, but we could do a friendly amendment to also allow the Department of Water and Power to start advising the public that something will be forthcoming, to start preparing, so that, because we know we're going to do something, but
I think they have begun that process, but that already, and that they can continue to do that. We don't need an amending motion to do that. The item before us is whether or not we disapprove today so that it can go back to Ms. Perry's committee and then subsequently come back to the City Council. Ms. Perry? It'll go back to the Commission. And the Commission would have to adopt it again.
Right. And it'll come back
For it to come back to the committee.
Correct.
However, that doesn't mean Ms. Perry cannot have on her committee agenda
That's right.
a discussion of this item next week
Yeah,
or
I'll do
whenever
next week.
To be able to do that.
Right.
Correct?
Hold my time.
Mr. City Attorney?
Which city?
That could be scheduled independently, yes.
Okay. Again, we are in procedural issues because right now what we have is the motion. So
It's a procedural issue for the DWP attorney. If this is discontinued here, that ends everything. Disapproved here.
If the City Council disapproves the resolution and recommendation of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners, it will make their prior resolution a nullity, and the process, if they believe that there is a shortage and we are facing a loss of water in the City of Los Angeles, with the desire of avoiding the limitation on distribution of water in the City of Los Angeles simply because there's insufficient water to go around, then yes, they would have to start all over again.
And if the city council, if this disapproved the city council today, but the council committee after disapproval asked for it to go to committee to be considered and then restructures whatever we feel because of all the questions that were raised, does it have to go back to the Board of Water and Power Commissioners? Or could the city council then take it back here?
There would be nothing for the City Council to take back. There would be no valid resolution for them to act upon from the board under the statutory scheme that exists here.
Got it.
So, colleagues,
So the only question, though, I got to ask the city attorney from DWP is if we have a multitude of questions, our only answer would be to not approve this if we can't get the questions asked today.
Well, we would certainly recommend that whatever questions are outstanding be posited to the panel that is here today, and we are prepared to answer those questions.
So again, colleagues, this is like a 245 in an instance, which is sending it back to the commission, saying we disapprove. The commission then, for it to come back to us in a formal manner in which we would approve something, the commission would have to act again in that manner.
That's correct.
So, but Ms. Perry can have it on her agenda as a discussion item to answer all of these questions prior to the commission taking any of that action.
That's all I want to do.
Yeah. So I think that's what Ms. Perry was indicating earlier.
Yes.
So just some confusion there. So is everyone clear on that now? On that? Okay. Thank you.
I just have one question.
Yes, but what we're asking is whether or not we're going to go forward. What Ms. Perry is suggesting is that we not go forward on this item, that right now we take a vote to disapprove it. Any questions and issues that we have be given to this body to come before the committee and ask those questions before it comes back to
Can we
council.
wait till we...
I have a point of clarity.
Can we wait till we finish
Okay.
this?
Yeah, Mr. Parks, wait. Okay, Mr. Parks?
I just have one point of clarity. If we send it back as proposed, isn't there an ordinance in place that will cause it to go forward, even if we don't?
No. If we
Are we saying we're stopping the ordinance?
We're stopping the action. What the city attorney's indicated is that if we disapprove it, then it won't go into effect. The commission would have to act again.
Okay, but I just want to clarify, the ordinance, as stated, is not in place. not in play.
No, Councilman, the ordinance is in effect, but the way the ordinance is written, the Board of Water and Power Commissioners makes basically a recommendation of what it intends to do or a statement of what it intends to do. Then it is up to both the mayor and or the council to disapprove that action within the time set by the board.
So it's not automatic. I just want to make sure later we
it
don't find
is
out it's not
automatic. It is automatic if this council does not disapprove it today.
Okay.
All right. Colleagues, okay, Mr. Lamonge, hold on a second. We have a lot of people. Can you hold on a second? Mr. Reyes has raised his hand as well. Colleagues, we have several people on the queue. We're going to have two discussions. One is we want to take the action. Ms. Perry has asked that we disapprove it today and have separate item that will go before her committee to have this discussion, ask the commission to act again in a manner with that information in hand. So what I would, and so Mr. Reyes, if someone does not want us to go forward on that item, then they can vote no on going forward with that disapproval. The second question I will ask people is whether or not we want to continue the hearing and have other discussion today, even though we have disapproved it and it is going to go back to committee.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment on this action.
Thank you.
So, ma'am, do that now. I'd like to have Smart Water and Power come back as part of the report that's going to be reviewed by Councilman Perry. It's the use of recycled water. I want to understand, I sit on the board, County Board of Sanitation. The rest of the county and many, many cities are using reclaimed water from their sanitation districts as potable water in the process of recycling. We're not doing that.
Okay.
That's millions of dollars of water usage that we put in the river and send out to the ocean.
Right.
So I'd like to get a report back on implementing that system to be consistent with the rest of the county and for the most part the rest of the state.
We will have them ask that
That's
question.
a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Person on the queue gets to speak.
Okay.
I mean, everybody just keeps interrupting.
I understand that. Yes. So, and Ms. Hahn, guess what? You're the next person on the
Thank
queue.
you.
But what I'd like to do is first vote on whether we're going to. There are two votes that we're going to take now,
I don't
Ms.
think
Clerk.
we need to vote. Nobody's called for the question. We've got motions. We've got friendly amendments. Let's finish the discussion and then vote.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way we usually do it. Nobody's called. Yeah, let's.
Well, I think what
nobody's
Ms.
called-
Perry was suggesting is actually that we do call the question and have it sent back
No,
to
she
committee.
didn't. She just made a motion to send it back.
I can't.
Okay.
I technically cannot
Yeah,
call
she
the
just made a
question.
motion.
Okay, Ms. Hahn, you're on the queue.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate, actually, Jan Perry, what you've done today, because I've been sitting here being very frustrated, and I was actually going to vote no on this item because I have before me a motion that I introduced a year and a half ago, stating we were in a severe water crisis. We already knew that MWD was going to be cutting our water. It's one of the worst crises we've had in a long time. I mentioned all these issues a year and a half ago, and I said, 70% of all the water consumed is consumed outside the home for landscaping and pools. I called on the DWP a year and a half ago to begin to put into measures, whether it would be a rate restructuring or conservation measures, so that the people of Los Angeles knew that we were in a crisis. And that never happened. And so I have a problem with coming today and immediately saying this is about rate increases. This is about punishing people who are not conserving. This is about immediately saying we're in a crisis, you're going to pay more if you don't get below 50% of the threshold. Well, that's not the way I think we ought to be doing this. We got to be, our people are smart. Our residents, our neighborhood councils, we have an MOU with neighborhood councils and DWP. We're smart. If we're educated, we can begin conserving. I asked several times on our day of water that we had, I said, shouldn't we right now be putting in mandatory conservation measures, like not watering on certain days of the week? I mentioned Long Beach that was doing that, not serving water in restaurants. That was like a year ago. And I got blank stares from everybody. Well, good idea, good idea, good idea. And what happened today? This comes before. I got this information like yesterday afternoon. I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to read what Tier 1, Tier 2, thresholds, 15% low, who would get an increase, who wouldn't. And I thought, that's not how I wanted us to operate. I wanted us a year and a half ago, colleagues, I introduced this, saying, look out, we're going to be in a shortage. What are you going to do to educate people? I say put in all the possible conservation measures right now before you begin to hit people with a rate increase. Let's try it. Let's try it the other way first. And then, I still think, colleagues, we ought to get rid of Tier 1 and Tier 2. I think people ought to pay for the water they use. And that would be, I think, a way for people to begin conserving. And there is an equity that's never been addressed. Certain people do have large homes. Certain people do have large pools. That's okay. That's your choice. But you ought to pay for the water you use, and those people who don't, pay for the water they use. I've asked for that, looking at that to restructure. I've gotten nothing back from you. And for you to say that right now you're going to be going out and outreaching to people when this kicks in June 1st is just an abomination. We're going back to the old ways of doing things. So I was going to vote no on this. I'm glad it's going back. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you. And first let me single out the folks that are here from the Apollo Alliance who have been very patient all morning. And thank you guys for all you're doing for the environment. And I know that item's coming up shortly. Excuse me if I'm not here for the final vote because the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development is here today in Ms. Perry's district. We're going to go lobby for more of that money for the job training dollars to make this actually happen. But you have my full support on it. Second, just so we know the minutia of what we're voting on here, or what we would be voting on, or what we in the future will be looking at again. We have basically the summer months in which we need the saving to occur. In order to get, there's a 30-day notice that has to go out to all payers, and in order to get to them by June 1st, we have to make sure it lands in their mailbox by 30 days before that, May 1st. In order to do that, it has to be out of the mail house around April 24th or so. So what I would propose, colleagues, because I know in my heart, and I know there's folks that we've talked about this, that what we want to put forward is something that is revenue neutral, not something that raises rates overall, but a revenue neutral thing that encourages conservation. We've all said that. Ms. Hahn has led the way on that. Others, we can do that. But what it will require is a vigorous, continuing conversation in the 6 days that we have before our next council meeting. So what I would propose is, and I know Ms. Perry wants to do this, Ms. Perry wants to do a special meeting potentially on Tuesday. The board could meet on Tuesday in a special meeting of water and power as well. We could have a placeholder here. That doesn't mean this is going to pass. It means if the work that we are talking about is done, we try to bring it here. That means DWP having to talk to the mail house, making sure the mail house can print it, get it to folks, out in the mail by whatever it is, the 24th, 25th, 26th, so that it lands in people's mailbox by the 1st. What we don't want to be in the place of is not having done anything, so in the summer months we don't have conservation. Because then we're in a place where we're in the middle of the drought and process one out over what we need to do, which is conserve water, and we all know that. So let us commit ourselves to doing that, and as we continue this debate today, we will work very hard. For members of the public and the neighborhood councils who have been involved, we will help you and continue to spread the word and give input in those times and when they're in committee. We'll come and we'll start even earlier. The chair will set the time, but to make sure we have time to actually continue to hear all of that. When most Angelenos hear that, I think, what was the percentage of Angelenos by this plan that should be paying less versus more? It was 85% will pay less if we do it the right way. We need to make sure that that is the case, and we need to communicate that. But I want all council members to hear that. 85% of our constituents paying less is a good thing. Using water less is a good thing. Inaction, a bad thing. So I think we will be pressed up against the wall, but let's hold out hope that we can still do that in this scenario. It's clear people don't feel, I don't feel, others don't feel, the public doesn't feel ready to do that today. But it will still allow us to take action, but that means we all have to work hard in these next 6 days. Thank you.
Mr. Cardenas.
There's so much I want to say, but I'm going to call the question.
Question has been called. Madam Clerk, please, first we will take a vote on calling the question. Open the roll. Procedural question is, we are calling the question, and then we will go to
I asked
Ms.
the question, a procedural question.
Mr.
The
Bonch.
city attorney. What Mr. Garcetti just says, does that mean it meets the time frame that we have here?
No.
This city attorney.
We can,
But I'll tell you.
Call the question.
Madam Clerk, please open the roll on calling the question, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
13 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. Ms. Perry's motion is before us with Mr. Reyes's amendment.
Madam President, those would be reports back, and council can't amend this, so they would be additional motions.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again for
I'm sorry. This matter can only be approved or disapproved, and any other motions would be additional motions requesting reports back.
That's what I was suggesting, was the amendment was the report backs. So Ms. Perry's motion is to disapprove this item, with all of you understanding that we will deal with the technical aspects of timing and coming back that Mr. Garcetti made forward, and Ms. Perry having her special meeting and work out that with the commission in the upcoming week. Madam Clerk, please open the roll on, this would be a yes vote if you support Ms. Perry's motion of disapproving today. Okay? Does everyone understand that? Okay. Yes means no. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please open the roll on this item. Close the roll. Tabulate the votes.
14 ayes.
Okay, thank you. And I know Ms. Perry and Mr. Garcetti will make sure everyone is informed as to the next steps. Yes. The clerk has indicated that we'll do everything forthwith today because we will not be in session on Friday. Madam Clerk, next item, please. I think we go back to...
do you wish to go back to public comment?
I think there had been a request to go to, by Mr. Garcetti, to go to item number 10. Okay. Item number 10 is before us. There has been a public hearing on that. I know who wants to speak on this item, on the green building item. Mr. Reyes. Thank you for your patience. Mr. Wesson.
Thank you, Madam President and members. If I could ask my colleagues to kind of move to the side. I want to thank all of you in the yellow and orange T-shirts for hanging in there with us. I know many of you have been here since prior to 8 o'clock in the morning. When I was Speaker of the California State Assembly, we had an opportunity to make California a global pioneer where related to limiting greenhouse gas emissions. We all know they come from the vehicles and they are a contributor to global warming. I have never, members, ever been in such a fight like that in my life. Every lobbyist in Sacramento was hired to oppose this effort. The opposition, as we were discussing and debating this, were on the telephones to right-wing radio stations asking for thousands of Californians to call their elected officials and tell them not to support this bill. This bill was sponsored by Fran Pavley and co-authored by myself. When we finally got to the point where we had the 41 votes to pass this bill, my staff urged that we take the vote. I said no. I said we've got to wait a little longer because I had learned a lesson from my former boss, Councilman Nate Holden that said, when you pass something as tough as this, you need to get one extra vote for the double cross. So instead of 41 votes, I walked around and found an extra vote. We put the vote up. It passed, but not by 42 votes, by 41 votes. Somebody took a pass, just like my old boss said would happen. Also, as just an aside, my staff, for those of you that don't know them, they're good people, and we joke and we play pranks on each other. So we passed this landmark legislation, and they tell me President Clinton is on the telephone. He wasn't president then. I didn't believe him. I let him stay on the line on hold for 3 minutes. And then I picked up the phone. Yeah, Herb, this is Bill. Okay? And it was the president. I am so glad that the winds in this country blow from the west to the east, because as I stand to you today, there is a partnership, a cooperation to have us move forward and have Los Angeles be the trendsetter. Let Los Angeles show the rest of the world that we can make a green economy work for the city and for its residents. So today, we become a national pioneer again, members. We have a piece of legislation that has an environmental component, an economic workforce development component, a savings component, and at a minimum, we should have energy savings on water of about 20%. We will create the first green job training program, and everybody knows that the President of the United States is committed to taking this nation in a green direction. We vote yes on this legislation today. We put Los Angeles at the front of the line. So I ask for a unanimous vote. And before I do that, I have to thank, again, the people in the yellow shirts, the people in the orange shirts. I have to thank, and stand up, guys. Give yourselves a round of applause. Make a little noise. And Councilmember Greg Smith and I have purple shirts. So the purple shirts. And I really want to thank Andrew Westhall from my office, who was like the quarterback on this. I want to thank the other council people who worked on this with me, and the mayor's office. And again, this is Los Angeles sending a message to not just the country, but to the world, that we will get it right and we will lead the way. A yes vote today lays out a blueprint for the rest of the world. I ask for an aye vote, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Wesson, for your leadership on this item. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in praise of Mr. Wesson and in praise of the hardworking folks who are here today. Mr. Wesson, I just want to congratulate you because you recognize that the only way LA is going to compete in the new economy is if LA is leading the effort on clean jobs, on green jobs. And to do that, we don't need just to be clean and green. We need to make sure our people are working. This is a desperate time in America, and we need to make sure that the good folks of this city who can work and want to work have good, productive jobs that they can focus on. Thanks to your effort, Herb, and the efforts of your staff, the city is going to start doing that. Now, at the end of the day, I believe, and I think all of you believe, government is not going to be the ultimate engine here. It's going to be the private sector. But this is an opportunity where government can really sort of ignite the fuse, lead the charge, sort of catalyze and show the way to everybody. That's what we're going to do with this program. I congratulate all of you for being here. Thank you very much, Mr. Wesson.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. Well, I also rise to thank everyone for making this happen. And clearly, the green jobs are the jobs of the future. And coming up with a way to have a reliable, sustainable green workforce for the future is key to our own economic stimulus here in Los Angeles. And, you know, sitting on our new ad hoc committee on the City Council that is looking at the economic stimulus package and is trying to prepare Los Angeles to receive a lot of those funds, one of the questions on every single application is, will this money go towards green jobs? And that gives you a competitive advantage when you're applying for grants. It gives you a competitive advantage when you're trying to receive this economic stimulus package. So I really do think that this is such a great initiative for Los Angeles. And I just want to make sure, Mr. Wesson, that when the task force is forming, when the hearings are being held, that we certainly include the airport and the Port of Los Angeles. I mean, both those entities certainly have massive green initiatives. And there does need to be a workforce that supports them, particularly in the Port of Los Angeles. We have a potential $50 million community benefits fund that will go to helping mitigate the negative impacts of the port operations in Wilmington and San Pedro. And a lot of that will be, air filtrations and, sound wall, everything that will help prevent the negative impacts of the port. We need a whole workforce to begin doing this because it's going to be massive. It's going to be a lot of homes in that area that are going to need to be retrofitted to mitigate pollution. Also, in the port, we're growing a port technology incubator center. We're going to be looking at new inventions that will actually ultimately clean the air better, but we need a workforce to make that happen. So I just want to make sure we include the port and the airport as we move forward. Those two entities are laying the groundwork to provide for this next generation of green-collar jobs. Great. And instead of this being a blueprint for the rest of the nation, this is a green print for the rest of the nation.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah, just quickly, green-collar jobs, it's for everybody. We have to go there, and we have to go there now. The climate change has put us in a very threatened position. If we're going to create new jobs, they've got to be green jobs. I can tell you, come to my West LA office, it's a dump. And we need to get the air condition fixed. We need to get the lighting fixed. We need to retrofit our old buildings. In fact, if I could get somebody in this building to shut off the lights upstairs when I ask them to shut them off, we could even save energy that way. But they say they have to rewire the whole system. So some of the old buildings are going to need rewiring. Some of the old buildings are going to need new equipment. Some of them are going to need modernization and all kinds of things. So whatever we can do to bring ourselves into the 21st century, not only jobs, but also making them green is what we have to do. Thank you.
Mr. Reesar.
Thank you, Madam President. And again, quickly, I want to give a big shout out to my brother Herb Wesson. Great thing, because as we continue reading about how this country is losing its competitiveness, because that we are not preparing our population for the jobs of the future. But here we are doing it. We have talented, skilled, willing, and able people here in the city of Los Angeles to get trained for those jobs, to get on those jobs. And in the city of Los Angeles, this is the type of cutting-edge work we should be doing to show the rest of the United States that we have the workforce here who are able to do those jobs of the future. Good job, and I look forward to see more results on this. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
So I also want to stand and thank the community folks, all the advocates, but also our chair of committee, Councilman Wesson, for his hard work. But for me, what's just as significant is that in a day and age where we have industrial uses adjacent or mixed with residential uses, we have technology moving in such a way where we have to learn how to create manufacturing jobs right next to residential zones. These are the compatibility issues that I'm hoping can emerge, that we can identify a workforce along with a manufacturing base, industrial base that is green, but it's friendly to work with when we talk about how the city's evolving. We all know we've run out of space. We're trying to figure out where to put housing. We want to sustain our manufacturing industrial zones. So as we move forward in this dialogue and this discussion, that we find a way to create these jobs so they are near our homes, but more importantly, establish the workforce that can be at these jobs, and just maybe we can start curtailing some of the impacts on our traffic, on our air pollution, and start being a smarter city, a more strategic city. So congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And this is the wave of the future. And Mr. Wesson has done an incredible job. Thank you, Mr. Wesson, for your leadership on this issue and making it come forward. Yes. So I would like to, a public hearing has been held, but we thought we would announce those people who are here in support and ask them to stand.
I think, Madam President, we had some amendments that I'm going to withdraw, and then after because I want us to pass this today, and then I will reinsert those later.
Great. Okay. So we'll just thank you. We just want to read the names of the people who were here today. The amendment has been withdrawn at this point. Kate Gordon, Kevin Norton, Jane Paul, Daniel, I think, Viejo, Linda Delp, Jennifer Gantanton, Jason Elias, Candace Kim, Elsa Barbosa, Lupe Perez, Gerardo Almeida, Cheryl Parisi, Roxana Aguilar, Franco Vega, and Aaron McMullen, and all those that are here to support it. Why don't you all stand, and thank you very, very much for being here and your patience today. Thank you. There were two other speakers who did not indicate their position, Matthew Dowd and Zuma Dog. With that, no other speakers on the queue. If we could, open the roll on this item, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Congratulations, Mr. Wesson. Thank you, and that will go, as I said, all items will go forthwith. I'd like to go to our commissioner, which is item number 26. Our library commissioner, Mr. LaBonge. Please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We have a great nominee from Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. We welcome this commissioner to us and ask if you would just tell us your passion and how you want to serve the city of Los Angeles on the Board of Library Commissioners.
Hi, I'm Marsha Hirano Nakanishi. I live in El Sereno. From the time I was a little kid, went to the El Sereno Library. By junior high school, I was at the downtown library all the time. It's a second home. It's how most of us learned how to read and to read a lot.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time that you were here this morning as we waited for the opportunity to call your item. Members, I ask for an aye vote for this great citizen of Los Angeles who's going to contribute greatly to the Board of Library Commissioners.
Thank you. Mr. Weeser.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I want to recognize a great CD14 constituent, but more importantly, you have a long and tremendous history in working on education matters, and I think you're going to be a tremendous asset to this board. And we were speaking earlier, and it just reminded me that at one time, people looked at our library system with envy in terms of being a world-class public education system where people go there, and for some it's the only means of getting something to read, reading materials. I know it was for me growing up in East LA and Boyle Heights. And nowadays it's the only place where a lot of folks have access to the internet and to computers. And so we got to continue that. I know in these tough economic times there will be some very difficult decisions we all have to make, but hopefully we could continue our library system whole. It's so important. With your background and knowledge, and also your husband who's been involved in a number of these issues for a long time, I look forward to working with you to give those young people and all of us a place where we could go read, explore, and better understand one another. That's important as well. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. And Marsha, before we take the vote, we do have one public comment card. Mr. Zumadog?
It appears as though I'm the only person in this city. Who cares? By the way, we're celebrating Zumadog 3-year anniversary week. 3 years of I told ya ass. And right now what I've been talking about is the mayoral commissioner appointments. And again, I haven't met this person, and it's not a besmirch on their reputation. But let me tell you what happens with the mayoral commissioner appointments. First of all, as we've seen on the news, these mayoral commissioner appointments love to take resort vacations at the Ritz-Carlton and have all kinds of expensive perks. And I'd like to make sure that this commissioner is committed to making sure that their department does not go on these expensive luxury Ritz-Carlton taxpayer boondoggles. Thank you, and I'm within my rights for asking that. Secondly, my concern is that the mayor uses these commissioner appointments for political paybacks. Hey, drop out of the race against my cousin. Hey, drop out of the race against Richard Alarcon. You end up with the commissioner appointment. So I want council to be aware of that, because when that happens, you lose experience. Well, if you're taking somebody that you're just giving them a job just to either get them out of a race or because they paid in your campaign or they're a friend of your relative or cronyism, well, you lose experience. And that's how you end up with nobody knowing how to do anything in this city, and you end up with things like you just saw on item number 30. So I want the council to be very scrutinous of all commissioner appointees and tell the mayor enough of that BS. Zoom It Dog won't have it any longer. Now let's address the library, because we're talking about the libraries. Eagle Rock Library I was at. I need to tell you, the men's bathroom was out of order that day, as it usually is. Not usually. It's out of order a lot. If the restroom if the bathroom is out of order, the library must be closed that day, because you cannot have city workers that are forced to leave the building, walk down the street, cross through traffic, walk down the street again to use the Starbucks coffee bathroom. That is not appropriate. We need some people to really run the city the way I run it in my mind when I'm going through it. And this is outrageous. Please take care of some of these things.
Marcia, thank you very much for, Mr. Dowd, you did not submit a card. We thank you for your willingness to serve and appreciate that. You have a closing comment, Mr. LaBonge?
A strong recommendation for a great commissioner for library. Thank you so much, Mr. Shigawa.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience for being here. And Madam Clerk, with that, if you could open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Thank you. Next item, we've had a request from Ms. Hahn on item number 12. And then we will go to public comment. Ms. Hahn, we had not completed public comment, so we were going through that. Do you want to take your item now or go to public comment? Okay. Go to public comment. Mr. Zumadog, followed by Soledad Garcia. Oh, she's still here. Followed by Phyllis Doherty. By Arnold Sachs.
Yes, it's a big day of public comment. I'm wondering if, through the discretion of the council president, I could possibly have an extra 2 minutes today. Oh,
no.
Request denied. I'm sorry. I thought I would ask. First of all, what we just saw on item 30 is DWP David Nahai. He needed something. He needed something done. Now, maybe the people didn't want it, but council, it's not the council didn't want to pass it. It's just that they were so blindsided because it took preparation and leadership to look at the agenda item before it ends up on the screen, the way Zumadog does once in a while. So now they had to reject it and vote no. Not because they wanted to, but because Eric Garcetti said, oh, we thought the mayor was the one that was going to have to tell us. We were waiting to hear it from the mayor. And then they said, no, Eric, you can done it by yourself. So council, get your act together. Here's why I have no confidence in this future of this city. We have a budget crisis, $1 billion plus $7 billion of lacers. Now, we heard that the mayor needs citywide cuts from the, we need that the unions are going to have to give back money or face up to 5,000 firings. Now, we know that's not going to happen. I'm here to say all cuts need to start at the top. Before City Council asks for 1 penny to be cut across the city, we need the council and the mayor and their staffers to show by setting example, by making the cuts first. And I'm here to say that it's only a little drip in the bucket, and you know what? It's not going to mean squat, and it's not going to make a difference. But it's the kind of thing you have to do, and especially Dr. Deming, 14 points. You have to set the example. So you're going to have the mayor, the breath mint lady, gone, and take it from there. City Council, you can't have your staffers driving their personal cars to City Hall and driving the state cars back home and to work the next day. It's not valet services. Yes, it happens. And I'm here to say that in this budget crisis, Urgent timing. I need leadership. Something today. You have till May to get this done. And then I'm telling you people, I have no faith because I don't see a leader here except for Parks. I think he should be mayor. Just listen to Parks. The rest of you should shut up.
I'd ask you to please, again, watch your language during this time. That's a warning. Soledad Garcia. Phyllis Doherty. Phyllis? Followed by Mr. Sachs.
Is this on? Good morning. It's Phyllis Doherty. I'm here to talk to you, as usual, about my favorite people, the people who are working for the Department of Animal Services, out in the officers out in the field, the people in the shelters. And I understand that Mr. Brokes is planning to schedule among his cuts for that department 5 animal control technicians, those are the people that work in the shelters, 6 RVTs, 3 senior ACOs, 4 licensing canvassers. These are the people that are out there bringing in revenue, and a district supervisor, which probably isn't filled anyway. On that list, though, there's absolutely no one from his top-heavy management staff, new people who none of which have had any animal control experience out in the field. He's going to cut the people that are out there doing the work that we need drastically. He's also discussing closing the Harbor Animal Shelter. We absolutely cannot have this type of depletion of the services for the animals and for the people of Los Angeles. The people that have been hired for management, 5 extra people, if you averaged out their salaries along with the 2 assistant general managers and the general manager, they're all making over $200,000 a year. He has a new volunteer coordinator who's only been there a few months, a management analyst that has no experience in the city. If these positions were cut and we leave the people in the field and in our shelters, we can continue to protect the city of Los Angeles. So I'm urging you to stand behind them, those that are out there working for you and for all of us and protecting us, and make sure that Mr. Brokes, if he makes cuts, makes them evenly, and especially that he looks at getting rid of these people who are absolutely not really serving a valuable function for the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Followed by Oscar Johnson. Mr. Rosendahl, did you want to say something before we go in?
Issue, but we are not.
We're not. We're on public comment.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Arnold Sachs. I'd just like to clarify something regarding the marathon discussions. Can you imagine that? Discussing a marathon. I'm here about 30 times just talking about that. But what council passed the original bill to have the marathon in February on Patriots Day when Frank McCourt's bagman came in front here? That was here. That was this council. So to say that it was part of the law to change it to Memorial Day is just a bag of buffalo chips. Now that I've straightened that out, the city council has actually raised the bar to a new low. Even standards for this council. Your purported hearings on the rape backlog you had last week with Assistant Chief Deputy Beck testifying was such a sham. According to the testimony the Assistant Chief gave, the LAPD detectives had a policy that stated if they didn't ask for a test to be run, there was no evidence gathered, no DNA evidence taken. Creating an original backlog. No profiling by the LAPD? How about DNA profiling? There was a serial rapist in South Central. How long did that last? With the change in the policy with the federal government funding DNA testing, it's the arrests that matter, not the evidence. People in categories that were that didn't have DNA testing required suddenly became eligible for DNA testing. DUI, assaults, petty theft, all these categories are available for DNA testing. So you know a backlog would continue. Did the city council take any action to consider that backlog?
Mr. Oscar Johnson, followed by Yvette.
Under the
Mr. Sachs? Oscar Johnson, followed by Yvette Neal, followed by Jeff De La Rosa.
Yes, my name is Oscar Johnson. I'm a proactive. I speak for the press and I speak for culture change. First, I'd like to thank our new president, Mr. Barack Obama, and his wife, Michelle Obama. They are going in the right direction. Ms. Michelle Obama says she wants to teach the African-American female motherhood, and she wants the African-American female to cover themselves. Second of all, we need to end corruption in government, end illegal immigration. Our government only invites people in this country for infidelity and corruption. That's not the American way. We need a just government. We need a fair government for all government. We need to for all people. We need to indict Mayor Vergosa for the Fair Labor Act. He should be indicted. We need to recall Chief Brad. We need to recall Chief Lee Brock. We should come to a complete government. We should get rid of this white racism in politics, white supremacy in politics. This is not the way, American way. But I guess that's something that was imposed upon the American people from outside the American people. We'd like to send our condolences to the people of Palestine against Israel, for Israel composing their threats upon Palestinians. We need to tell Israel, remove U.S. war machine out of Israel now. We need a fair and just government. We need a government for all. But we finally recognize that politics is nothing but organized crime and criminals are the worst. And we're tired of innocent people getting killed through law enforcement. We find millions of innocent people go to war unnecessarily and get killed for something they do not know what about or anything about. We see this young lady at UFC, she get killed 2 or 3 weeks ago. An innocent lady get killed for money through government. 2 or 3 weeks later, no one hear anything about the crime, but when the reward became to be $250,000, the assailant was found. All you crooked politicians, we don't do anything about this corrupt government, we'll be at the weakness of government forever. And we know the politicians are not going to give away any money to no one but their own self.
Yvette Neal, followed by Jeff De La Rosa, followed by Mary O'Connor.
I withdraw my public comment. I should have submitted it for
Item 31, okay. Is that the same with Mary? Okay. I'm sorry, Jeff De La Rosa? Jeff De La Rosa, okay. Mary O'Connor? Phil Jennerjohn?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Phil Jennerjohn, and I'm here today in my official capacity as the spokesman for a new organization called Westside Republicans. Our chairman, Rob Pedersen, invites fellow Angelinos to join our organization and to join the tax revolt here in California. On May 19th, a dangerous and destructive ballot proposition called Prop 1A will be on the ballot. Proposition 1A is cleverly worded as a spending cap, but this is not accurate. No government has ever voluntarily reduced itself in size. You only need to look at our current city government and state government for affirmation of this principle. We currently have a governor who calls himself a Republican, yet at every opportunity he clearly strays from core Republican philosophies of lower taxes and smaller governments. His actions are harmful to our party, harmful to our tax-paying citizens, and harmful to our economy. We have a mayor who is intent on destroying the city of Los Angeles. His dishonest leadership has put the city $500 million in the red. He has 93 personal staff members and 16 deputy mayors, yet he refuses to fire or lay off any city employees. Both the governor and the mayor are statists. They believe in the ultimate power of the state over the rights of the individual. Both Governor Schwarzenegger and Mayor Villaraigosa believe that the mighty and powerful state has the right to any amount of your money. The percentage is irrelevant. Core Republican philosophies are the opposite. Republicans believe that the personal rights are inherent. They are given to you by an almighty and powerful God. And these rights are clearly explained in the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. These monumental documents of human freedom, written by our genius founding fathers, helped create the freest and most powerful economic nation in human history. These issues make party identification irrelevant. If you're a patriot and you love your country, please join us. There will be huge tax party rallies Wednesday, April 15th at 1 p.m. at the Santa Monica Pier, a huge rally there. Saturday, April 11th out in Pasadena City Hall. Tuesday, April 7th at Van Nuys City Center. San Fernando Valley Republican Party is sponsoring that one, so thank you.
Mr. Matt Dowd, followed by Mr. Anthony, followed by Jose Aguilar.
Yeah, thank you. Reset the clock. It was already ticking before I got here, but
Look, let me tell you what's going on in the city. It's basically mismanagement right from the top. Even today's meeting is mismanaged. You had all these marathon people. You could have just given them 10 minutes of public comment, 1 minute each, like you do to us. Get them out of the way so you could have get the rest of the public comment. Now we all got to sit here wasting hours and hours of public's time, and that's just public comment. You mismanaged the DWP thing. What a debacle that is. You couldn't even get the paperwork out of the mayor's office in time. Eric Garcetti's trying to blame the mayor for that. It's all your fault. Right? The $500 million budget deficit that the city of Los Angeles is in, the taxpayers who are paying the money. Let me tell you what's going on. Under the watch of this city council, you're now $7 billion and $500 million in the hole. So it's $7,500 million that the city of Los Angeles taxpayers are going to have to find to cover this up. So Greg Smith and Dennis Zine, maybe it's a good time to secede. You could be the mayor of the valley. Get the hell out of this one. It's going into the hole. Have you been down to Skid Row? Have you seen
Please
what's
watch your
going on?
language.
You've got public activists come here every day, tell you to clean it up and do something, and nobody talks to them. Like nobody talks to us. And all we do is come here for 3 years and try to help you and tell you how to stay out of these things. But, oh no, you don't listen out of spite. All you do is you change the rules to stop people talking, right? Instead of dealing with the issue, now's the time to actually get involved with some of these people and settle the issues. Look at all the marathon people. That's another monumental screw-up.
Mr. Anthony? Mr. Anthony? Yes, Mr. Smith.
So point of information, Mr. City Attorney. I didn't recall any of these people being here when the city's investment portfolio was producing a 30% above market profit for the last 10 years, but they come by here and say it's our fault that the stock market crashed. We had nothing to do with the stock market crash. Those investments were solid for 10 years.
Thank you.
No, you did not. And this is information.
Thank you.
This is not a debate.
Thank you, Mr.
That our portfolio was very profitable for the last decade. And when the stock market crashed, like every other portfolio in America, every single one of them suffered a cutback. Ours was not as severe as the marketplace was.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, followed by Jose Aguilar, followed by Walter Beitler. I'm sorry, I can't read that.
Good afternoon, City Council. Listen up, folks. The president needs our help right now. The wolves are at the White House gates, and they're banging very hard. The Tim Geithner, Larry Sumner's plan is getting shadier and shadier by the minute. The FISA bill, the illegal wiretapping surveillance program, he's going sideways on that. All he's hearing right now are the wolves at the gate. He needs to hear from us, the people, to let him know that we are back behind him and that he has to go straight. Also here, regarding City Council, here's a question for all of you listening. Can greed and stupidity coexist? Well, they do right here with these 15 council members and the mayor. You deceive the voters to enrich yourself. Your automatic pay raises, your extended term limits that you've given to yourselves. You blame it on the voters, but you deceive the voters with the small print. 3-4 weeks ago, the Washington Senator Russ Feingold passed legislation stopping the automatic pay raises. He not only found they were unjust, he found they were illegal. Has anyone stood up from the City Council to say, these are illegal, we have to put a stop to it? There's no leadership here, only when it comes to fleecing the LA City voters. You deceived the voters with $27 million that was supposed to go for battered women. That's going to the Grand Avenue project. Again, we've been deceived by all 15 of you. It's not just one, it's all 15. Your deceiving ways are getting tired. Your greed and stupidity are appalling and atrocious. Do I expect any of you to change? Not until we change you. We have to come down here in force, in mass, to have you do that. Just as we've done with the DWP. Unbelievable. You hide behind the laws that you passed that are illegal. Get your act together. You work for us.
Jose Aguilar. Jose Aguilar.
Good morning. The reason I'm here, because I was supposed to talk on item 30, but that wasn't made possible for whatever the reason. The reason I'm here because I would like to inform this council that your high-density, mixed-use commercial development projects that you guys keep advocating for is unsustainable. I would like to accuse Nahai being in league collusion with these developers, knowing that there is a fiscal water crisis. He still guarantees water to all these high-density, mixed-use commercial development projects. SCAG mentality of flooding this region with 12 million more residents is completely unsustainable due to the fact that every one of them, on average, uses about 100 gallons of water a day. Okay, so I'm also very upset that in my own district, Council 14, I got this high-density project called from 15 Group, which I'm going to submit here. They want to build, we have 1,200 units, they want to destroy 1,200 units, and they want to build 4,400 units of high-density. You know, this is absolutely maddening. I don't know if this council, you guys put the burden of the rationing on the homeowners, and yet you guys find it very easy to be in league and play these lapdog politics with these developers, right? You play lapdog politics with these developers, and yet you leave us, the resident homeowners, holding the bag for the lack of water, and then you leave us, the homeowners, paying for the higher utility rates because of all the density you're flooding into this district. I'm asking you to stop the density, stop development. We have a water fiscal crisis. All development should stop until and when our water supply gets back to normal. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Smith.
I'm going to start doing this regularly when people come with misinformation. For this gentleman's information, you go to the state legislature because the state legislature passed a law called the Rhino Act. The Rhino Act requires the city of L.A., just the city of L.A. alone, to build 77,000 units in the next 7 years. That is not our choice. We are following state law.
Walter? Yes, Mr. City Attorney.
And while he's coming up, just for the record, item number 30 had a public hearing in the Energy and Environment Committee yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Walter.
Which Walter?
Walter, I'm sorry, I can't read the last name. It is Beltzel?
No, Bechtel.
Bechtel.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to say something because I heard something about on the radio you're having a problem with water. I think I'll remind you, my people, not just the Bechtel people, but all of my family put the water into your city here, and my associated families from Azusa. I'm not sure exactly how comprehensive or how extensive it was. We put the dam in over there, and the Hoover Dam, etc. I've tried to tell Mr. Saines, it doesn't make sense the way you people are doing. You're reducing the units over at the hotel I live in from 295 to 140, but all 140 units are going to have a full bath and a kitchenette and a shower. The whole mentality there is to waste water. You're not conserving water. The old hotels, the way they were set up, and the way the one I'm living in is set up, is each one has its own sink, but we use a public shower. That conserves water. It doesn't waste water. I think that you need to restructure your mentality about the way you people think that you're going to be doing here. You got fountains and everything going everywhere. The water waste is this go ahead and do that thing anyway kind of mentality. It's not okay. And I think you should maintain the old hotels the way they are. If you want to build a new hotel, just okay, but you're not going down the right pathway there. And also, the water table over there is really rotten. My ancestor, James Mott, had a orchard over there. He had to move because the water table was so laden with caliche and other things. Mr. Sands needs to be informed more about the history of that area over there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bechtel. That closes public comment. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, next item. Ms. Hahn, did you want to take item number 12?
Thank you, Madam President. Item 12, colleagues, is we are, as a result of a motion by Gruhl, Zine, and Labange, we're actually amending the Los Angeles Administrative Code to allow for the fire department, particularly their EMS billings, to contract out to collections agencies. Before, the fire department did their own collections, which I just think fundamentally, is not good. Our fire department is about public service. They're about making sure they're the first responders on the front line. I don't think they need to be concerned with billing for their own services. And yet, as you know, every paramedic ride, every ambulance ride, it costs money, and many times those are difficult to collect. We have a lot of outstanding fire department uncollectibles out there, and in the spirit, again, of trying to collect the money that is owed to the city, on this item today, we're going to be doing two things. We're going to amend the code to allow them to do that, but at the same time, colleagues, I'd like to introduce an amendment, item 12A, that basically gets them to the next step, which is instructing them, with the assistance of the City Administrative Office and the Office of Finance, to issue an RFP to begin soliciting the services of appropriate firms to collect all emergency ambulance billing services for the city. Again, there are firms that do this for a living. They know how to collect bills. Fire department, I don't think, should be in that business, and they should concentrate on their core mission. So we're going to allow them to do it, and then with my amendment, we're basically going to instruct them to go out with an RFP. And just to let you know, I also think in these RFPs, there's a lot of small local firms right here in Los Angeles that I think we ought to be able to share some of this business with. So I hope you will agree with this direction that we're taking.
Mr. Reesar.
Thank you very much. And we heard this item in Budget and Finance. I want to thank the Fire Department and the Department of Finance for their cooperation. And it looks like they're headed in the right direction, but I think yours gives it even more parameters from which to work in. But I did want to remind them again and remind the public, too, that low-income folks are exempt from certain charges when they use ambulance services. And I emphasize that whatever collection agency we use, that in their letters and their contact with these individuals, that they put it in simple language, plain for people to read, that if they are low income, they are exempt. The last thing we want is for some folks, poor income folks, who are deciding whether to pay this bill when they needed medical help or food or shelter, for them to say, what should I pay? And they should be aware that they are exempt, and hopefully the collection agency does it in a language that people understand, possibly multilingual, and reminds them that they are exempt should they reach certain qualifications so that people are not harassed. Sometimes it is harassment. And it's good that collection agencies harass, because that's the way people pay, but that when they are being harassed because they haven't paid, that they are exempt from this. So that I just want to remind them, please talk to the collection agency, if possible, put it in the RFP. Thanks.
Compassionate harassment.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam President. Could I ask Pete to come on up, hold my time, city staff? Hello, come on, up to the ladder. Okay, just real quickly, folks, there's about $140 million that wasn't collected last year, okay? And this is a great new day, because what we're doing is taking a look at what we've done and see how we can improve it. Come on up, everybody, and give us a quick hit on the whole story. What we want to know is, how do we deal with the Medicare, Medicaid, insurance companies, and all of that? You know, we can't have, obviously, the fire department and others trying to collect that money, but the Office of Finance will do it. What this does is set up a precedent, folks, that hopefully, in 90-day periods, we can start collecting money that we hadn't been collecting before. So if I could hold my time, give us a quick summary of what we're doing here today, so the public can understand this.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Georgia Matera, the fire administrator for the fire department.
Please hold my time.
What we'd like to be able to tell you is in cooperation with the City Attorney and the Office of Finance, we've been able to amend the existing ordinance that allows us to refer these uncollectibles to collections. There's a number of things that we've been doing. Few of them are which accounting issues that we spoke about in committee. Primarily, one of the areas that we show a significant number of receivables on are those mandated adjustments that you referred to. Approximately $240 million is on the books as a receivable, but is really mandated by state and federal law that we write off. So we're in the process of getting that off the books. In addition to that, we're also taking off the books those items that exceed the statute of limitations of uncollectible accounts. Once those are complete, we have 3 years' worth of old bills, but roughly at about $25 million apiece. Right. That will go over to the Office of Finance once the ordinance is in place, and we'll be able to get our uncollectible debt down to a very reasonable amount.
No, this is music to our ears, obviously, because instead of the time limit restrictions and all these other things, and we just can't get it done, we will aggressively try to collect that $25 million.
Yes.
How will we do that?
Yes, sir. What will happen is as soon as the ordinance is completed, as I stated, the old bills will go straight over to the Office of Finance for referral to their collection agencies. And on a quarterly basis, what the fire department is committed to do is to continually write off those accounts that are deemed uncollectible or those accounts that are with the mandated adjustments. So you'll be able to see a very low number that is actually sitting on the books.
Very good. Fire department, explain why you find this is a good idea. Or if you don't, tell us the truth, whatever the truth is.
Well, I think like anything else, as a department, we're trying to assist the city in trying to generate as much revenue as possible. The fire department, we're continuing to move toward trying to be more efficient, and we're limited in staff, and so having this process of referring these uncollectibles to the Office of Finance will help assist us in getting this done.
Very good. And City Attorney, what are the issues you need to focus on or we need to be aware of?
No, simply that the ordinance would authorize a process that has not been in place heretofore. The sensitivity of the city in handling these types of accounts, which are subject to Medicare, Medi-Cal restrictions, and in some instances because of low-income debtors, had led us to not refer them to Office of Finance for collection or to the collection agencies. But I think that there are enough safeguards and processes to observe those constraints that this will give us greater efficiencies and still keep the delicate aspects in place.
Excellent. Is there anything you want to add to this?
I believe that on the number of accounts that now will be coming over based on the threshold amounts, that they will be relatively divided between those that would go to the outside collection agencies versus those that would be handled in-house by the Office of Finance under the current staffing of the Office of Finance.
Because some people's perception is we're just not collecting the money that is out there due us. And there were large figures thrown at us last budget cycle. But a lot of it is stuff we'll never collect. Explain why we won't.
Yes, sir, you're accurate in that. Primarily, most of the accounts are those accounts that we are required to write off by law. And so it shows, as we talked about, a significant receivable on the books. The other area, though, that we are challenged with is, and we're hoping with this new ambulance billing project that will come before you within the next few months, are those currently right now, the paramedics out in the field gather the patient information manually. They put it on a form. Sometimes the patient can't convey the information because they simply may not be able to, or they'll transport them to the hospital and we just don't have the information that we can to bill these people accurately. What we will be able to do is hopefully with the new handheld devices that we're looking towards is that we'll be able to electronically capture that data with the accurate patient information and billing addresses that we can bill them more efficiently and accurately. So primarily a lot of our problem has been that it's been a very manual system.
Right.
And so we're looking to automate that completely. And once we do that, you'll see a significant, hopefully, increase in the amount of revenue and the timeliness.
And that significant revenue that would come in, would we be calling insurance companies and other groups and say, hey, Joe Schmo, just da-da-da-da, here's a bill, pay it?
We will aggressively the hope is that when we have these outside consultants assisting us, they are experts in this industry, as we are not. And so we would like to be able to have them on board to help us with the coding and to help us with the insurance companies, because many of them have relationships already with the insurance companies that will be able to expedite the amount of money coming into the city.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the presentation here. It's a good thing for us, especially when we're looking at silver linings to find extra monies that we need to do to deal with our budget gap deficit. So appreciate it very much. Thank you. Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just ask, on the first part of the system that you've been working on the data capture and the billing, could you just explain to the council, as you did in committee, where we are on that system?
Yes, sir. Actually, we have been very involved. It's been a very extremely lengthy process, I know that many of you are aware of. And currently what we have done is we've gone out to RFP. We've issued that RFP. We are now we have completed final negotiations with the proposed vendors. The contract has been drafted and the board report as well. We will be required to go through our board of fire commissioners and then ultimately through the mayor's office to the city council for review and approval of the contracts. Our goal right now is to finish those contracts. We are working very diligently with the city attorney's office to go line by line to make sure that when the contracts come forward to the council, they are complete and ready to be implemented.
Okay. And do you have currently the funds to pay for that equipment?
The funding will be presented in an option format to the council members for your consideration, and it really will be based on probably a percentage of the amount of revenue that they collect for the city. That's over and above our current baseline.
Okay, so it'll be cost neutral to the current general fund?
Yes.
Okay. And then also, if all of this is approved, what is our best expectation of implementation?
We are looking towards a January 1st implementation date.
Okay. And this is the process that if we're successful over time, that you're going to come back to us and reevaluate workload and personnel, that we might have some additional savings currently?
Yes. In fact, we have it right now. We've been working on that as part of our cost-benefit analysis. So our plan is that when we come to council, you'll be able to see that as part of the report.
Okay. And then also, and I think this is where it gets confusing, just give us an idea of what's the annual amount of billing that goes on for paramedic service.
Total overall, well, what I can tell you is, for instance, we invoiced, I have 0506 numbers, so that's order of magnitude. We invoiced in 0506 about $115 million. Within that, if we wrote off the adjustments, we actually collected about $74 million of that.
And that's what, about 50%?
So we collected actually, if you net it out, we collected 67%.
67%. And then how much of that, just as a general number, that you say is not collectible by law?
Not collectible by law is about $41 million worth every year
that
we are mandated to write off.
What is that percentage?
That percentage represents approximately around 40%.
40% of what you've been declaring as being debt?
Yes.
So about 40% of what you've reported as debt is uncollectible?
Is uncollectible and or will be written off.
And so all of our efforts are going to go after 60%?
Yes.
Okay. And then on the issue of that process is, and I think one of the things also, it's probably one of the most complicated collection processes we have because of all the medical issues and all of the insurance issues.
That's very true, sir, is that it is a very complicated collections process because of the insurance billing, because of the patient information, and especially now with the privacy requirements that have been mandated through federal legislation, that we have to be very careful about maintaining patient privacy.
And as far as when you're through with it, and we're now talking about giving it to outside agencies, just any outside agency couldn't handle this type of bill collection. They'd have to have some previous knowledge of the medical system and what some of the limitations by law?
Yes. In fact, we'll be working closely with the Office of Finance to make sure that these collection agencies, whomever we contract with, absolutely meet and understand all of the HIPAA requirements and guidelines to ensure patient privacy.
Are you aware at all if any of the current people that are on the city's payroll that do collections, are they expert in collecting this type of debt?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Okay. So the thing is that this would have to be a specialized or a very special RFP when it goes out.
I would imagine so. I would think Office of Finance could probably address that.
Just for clarification, Councilman, at least one firm that we are currently dealing with does have those expertise. They have a unit, a specific unit that deals exclusively with the emergency medical billing.
Okay, do they also participate? So they participated in some of our other debt collection, but they also have this unique expertise.
Correct.
Okay. Now, if, and with a comment on Ms. Hahn's motion on 12A, in addressing this, with this volume of debt that we're looking at, would that be something in which a variety of companies would be brought on board, or do we have some idea of what that debt will be, the amount of that debt?
Being very appreciative of the situation and what's been presented, the 4 agencies that we have currently, my personal opinion is that they're in a position to handle that. However, I am aware of the concern that we want to make sure that we have fully capable of handling all additional referrals.
And then recently, I think in the last 2 weeks, we asked the Department of Finance, gave them a direction to come back and review whether we could have sufficient workload to put out another RFP for small local companies to participate. Is that in process now?
That is correct. We were given a 60-day window to come back with a report answering those questions and providing additional information to council, and that is well underway.
Okay. As you assume this responsibility, is that something that we should be looking to include in that study, or as 12A is asking, can that go directly to an existing company that has this expertise?
Could that happen? Absolutely. I think that's possible. We've discussed in terms of volume of accounts with the fire department, and I don't think it is a volume incredibly large that they could not handle.
Okay. Let me ask Pete, on the city attorney's point of view, is because this is a new workload and because it's unique to the fact that we're going out and having private companies deal with it, is that something that we'd be required to do an RFP? Or is that something that could be part of an existing workload?
I think that will be determined in part by the assessment of the workload that goes to Office of Finance. So I think that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
If it is significant enough, it would require a new RFP.
Okay.
But they may be looking at doing that in the near future in any event, I think, overall.
Okay. Let me ask Ms. Hahn, Janice. Let me ask you a question on 12A. Janice not speaking to me today.
Ms. Hahn, Mr. Parks wants your attention.
12A, on your motion, let me just ask you, with the work that they're doing on the previous direction by the council to come back to us for local collection, could your motion be included in that? Because one of the things, we have one company currently that does medical collections, but the issue is we don't know at this time whether this workload will overwhelm them or whether by the uniqueness of the task would we have to go out to RFP.
Here's my problem. We have the same firms out there, and just amending the code today just says you're allowed to transfer to Office of Finance, and then they just shift it to the firms that they already have. That's kind of the same old, same old.
No.
So what I wanted was a new RFP just for EMS billing.
Okay.
And let's see who responds.
The thing is not all of the companies that we currently have that expertise, only one of the 4. So that's what we're saying.
That's why I'm saying do a new RFP. Let's see who else is out there.
That's what I'm asking you. Can we put that into the previous direction to ask them to look at 12A as part of what they're looking at on your local companies? Also, they can come back with the answer for both of your motions.
I don't know. I don't really know what you're asking.
Okay. I'm asking, we already gave them a direction to do a study on your local motion.
Yeah, no, I didn't ask for a study.
Well,
that's the difference. I don't want a study. I want a new RFP on EMS billing. Put it out on the street. Let's see who responds. Let's see who's qualified, and spread the wealth around.
Okay.
No studies.
All right. No study. All right. Let me ask you this. On the previous motion you had, the issue is we're trying to get an answer for you on that about local companies and whether there's sufficient work, or is that another RFP? So it looks like they're somewhat consistent. So I'm just saying, can they study them at Department of Finance at the same time?
I just think we're in a financial crisis right now, and I don't think we need any more studies. I think we need to have local firms. I think we need to spread this around to companies that know what they're doing, and that was my wish. I don't want to just pass it on to finance and let them pass it on to the same old firms.
No, that's not the request.
Okay.
The issue is we just asked them at the same time that they're looking at your first motion to look at this motion as it relates to RFP for local companies and for paramedics billing, so that they can bring back the answer for both questions at the same time.
Is that okay with you, Ms. Hahn?
I feel like I'm losing this battle.
Well, you're up next.
No,
so-
we're just trying to not give them conflicting things. They can look at both of them at the same time.
Why can't we just do it?
If I may, I think there's a little confusion by calling it a study. I understand that Office of
Yeah, that
Finance
makes me nervous.
has to report back within 60 days, and I think
They've
that
already gotten that direction.
Just
to
talk
report
about
back within
how much the
60 days.
feasibility. You're, so
Correct.
you're going to give me the feasibility of doing this.
Okay, Ms.
They are.
Hahn, hold on. You're up next. Mr. Parks, are you completed?
Okay, well, it won't be a study, it'll be a feasibility, and if we can do the RFP for both of them, then we'll merge them
Okay,
together.
okay, Mr.
All
Parks.
right?
I
Mr.
know,
So
I
I'd
know
ask-
from past history you're doing that.
Mr. Parks, you finished now?
Now, let me just ask that we move both reports, committee reports on this item, in addition to 12A, as we, with those verbal understandings.
Okay, now we can start the clock for Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. Well, I will say in the past, Mr. Parks usually always has the right motives and usually accomplishes what I want to accomplish in a more organized fashion. So I will trust that what you just did was the right thing. But I did want you to speak because all your comments before were kind of the old school comments. We're going to pass them on to the Office of Finance, who passes them on to the collections agency. I would like for you to speak on this idea of doing a new RFP just for EMS billing, separate company, and I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
In terms
Well,
of the
hold
fire
your time.
department,
In terms of the fire
In
department.
terms of the fire department, absolutely. We would be more than happy to sit with the Office of Finance and partner together that we can and find or target those specific companies that have expertise in the area and that could meet our needs as well as the Office of Finance needs. And so for us, we're very open to that, and we'd welcome the conversation that we could sit and work in that direction.
One of the things we might, and my colleague Jose Weezer brought it up, it's the idea of how we do the collections. And I agree. I mean, this is a very touchy issue. You might have, your spouse might have, died while they were being, by the time they got to the hospital or whatever. You're left with all these terrible things that happen, and then you've got this bill, this one last bill for ambulance service, and it's touchy and it's delicate. So one of the things you might work on in your RFP, besides just an expertise in collections, is kind of compassionate harassment. I think we do need to look for firms, and I believe that right now, even for Los Angeles, there's money that's owed to us, but times are tough for people, and I want us to be compassionate in how we get the money that's owed to us. And I would like, particularly, I think when it comes to EMS billing, it's a whole different level. I mean, DOT is a little bit different in how they collect parking tickets, but this is very sensitive. This really hits home to a lot of people. It's a needed service, but it could also be symbolic of a lot of grief. So that would be important to me. But I really want to move this quickly. And when you say, let me just ask one more question. When you say expertise in EMS billing, what does that mean?
If you're asking in terms of current agencies' involvement.
Well, no, the RFP is going to go out and you will ask for companies that have expertise in EMS billing. What does that mean?
They would have familiarity with HIPAA requirements in terms of what the processes are with Medi-Cal and Medicare and what the stipulated uncollectible amounts would be. Those would be some of the key issues that would be involved in having expertise with EMS billings.
Okay. On this, would you do, my fear is there's only certain firms that we've been using, so naturally they have the expertise, when I think, again, we ought to broaden our net a little bit and bring more collection agencies into the fold. Would there be an opportunity for kind of a bidder seminar or an opportunity for a conference, meeting for potential bidders to the RFP that you could talk about what you're looking for?
That is generally a part of the process.
Okay. Okay.
So that is one of the initial steps.
So so give me the timeline from today if we approve this. When do you think there could actually be an RFP out on the street for new collection agencies?
Well, just for clarification, I mean, there's two schools of thought, I guess, being discussed right now. I mean, one is the report back, which we have due back now in about 45 days,
right,
which would talk about the feasibility.
Right.
If we're actually implementing the process, if you were to fast track it, I mean, it realistically could be done probably in 120 days. But there are other elements of this that really aren't discussed, and I don't want to dissuade you at all.
Right.
But even if we bring them on board, normally there is a process where we implement an interface between computer systems, because normally all of our referrals are done electronically.
Right.
Even with the current collection agencies that we have now, it was a minimum of 6 months before we actually got them on board and effectuated that.
Right.
So it's because we bring them on board, it's not going to happen immediately. It is a process with all of these type of endeavors.
Right. Well, I mean, again, I think it's an opportunity for Los Angeles to broaden a little bit our collection net out there. Clearly, we have way too much uncollected debt in the city. I know the firms that we've hired are doing the best they can, but I would hope this is an opportunity to bring some new local businesses on board to help us collect this debt. I'm hoping in the RFP you don't necessarily overweight current experience, or you've already got your computers vetted with our computers. I mean, nothing that would in any way diminish the opportunities for small, minority, local businesses who might want to help Los Angeles, particularly the fire department, in collecting these bills.
And again, I will validate your concern. I just want to reiterate the comments that Ms. Matera made earlier to Mr. Rosenthal's comment that a lot of this is uncollectible debt. And although it is a big number on the ledgers, a lot of it ultimately will be uncollectible.
Sure, but as I said last time, 0 from 0 is 0. We don't have it now. We may not have it, but why not try and see what we can get?
Ms. Hahn, you're way over time. So, and Mr. Reyes, you had a comment? No one will comment. There's no one else on the queue. The matter is now before us. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
10 ayes. The matter was heard in public safety, sir. That's why we're not taking public comment on this matter. Next item, please.
And also for the record, Mr. President, the order goes over for a week.
Very well. Very well. That'll be the case. Item number 12. And I understand that we may be losing a quorum shortly, so we need to speed it up.
Item 11?
Item 11, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'll make this fast. This action is response to a state bill, 1185, Lowenthal. Essentially, what we're doing is we're lengthening the life of subdivision map approvals that expire on or after July 15, 2008, and before January 1st, 2011. It lengthens the allowable extension time for those subdivision maps by an additional year in perpetuity. It lengthens the life of other entitlements related to a qualified subdivision map approved by 1 year, and approves an urgency clause to implement proposed ordinance as expeditiously as possible. So we're responding to a state law. It was signed by the governor, and so it was back in July 15, 2008. So again, we're following state law. This is not, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. We have 2 public comments on this particular matter. Pardon? It already had its hearing? Okay. Well, this matter, too, has already had its hearing. So we're going to vote. Mr. Smith.
I had one question, and it was something I brought up a couple of years ago, that when projects linger and don't get built for years, the environmental impact report or the planning report that was done on the project gets out of date. And so I requested that, and I had a motion to that effect, that after a 7-year period or 6-year period of time, I think it was, that there's some review to make sure that the documents are all still accurate, the transportation elements accurate, that all those things are looked at again. Does this change that in any way?
No, it doesn't. That should follow along the timelines that have been extended. Again, the state is responding to economic crisis, the banking issue, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But I'll double check for you to make sure that doesn't change.
All right, good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rosendahl.
It's the same question that Mr. Smith asked, just a clarification. There are projects in my district that are beginning to move in certain ways, and I wanted to know how they would fit within it.
Right. And again, I think we should revisit if there are certain cases that stand out in their respective districts. Let's identify them. We'll have the staff respond as to what kind of mitigation or community impacts, community benefits are associated with those projects. But what we're doing is lengthening the time of these subdivision tract maps.
And I appreciate that, especially your sensitivity to, obviously with the down economy, everything is confused right now. I know some really good developers who've come to me and said, I just can't get the financing now. And we have to show appreciation for all of the reality that we're dealing with this economic.
Thank you. Both sides of each issue, an ability to respond. So I thought it was important that we share this and open up to the public and not just vote on it on consent.
Okay, that matter is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That passes. Mr. Reyes, comment on that?
That's it. I was going to say at 23, 24, we can do it together. It's really fast.
And I'm sorry, the order goes over for 1 week on number 11.
Very well. 23, 24 together, please.
Really fast. We're not changing zones. All we're doing is creating a riverfront district. These are urban design guidelines. It does not take away entitlements. It does not add entitlements. But it adds a river corridor that essentially stimulates a new way to design our buildings. It gives us the ability to create the front yard. We've always had our backyard against the river, and allows for a 1 mile from the riverbank, 1 mile out, so we can actually create a riverfront district. So I just want to make sure that was very clear, and that developers and council members don't fear that we're changing entitlements. We're taking away entitlements, urban design guidelines.
Mr. Reyes, we have public speakers on this. Madam Clerk, has this been heard in committee? This also been heard in committee. The matter is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Mr. President, there was a card on number 1, but that was withdrawn, so that can be voted on by council now.
All right, number 1. On that matter, open the roll.
And I'm sorry, that is a receive and file.
Okay. Then we will receive and file.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 25. There's a card submitted on that one, and also just for the record, no action is required by council on that one. That was just a placeholder.
I have 2 cards, Mr. Zumadog, Mr. Arnold Sachs. I don't see Mr. Zumadog in the chambers. Mr. Arnold Sachs, number 25.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Arnold Sachs. Grant applications for your American Recovery Reimbursement Act. Based on your track record, such as with the grant from the federal agency for the DNA testing and some of the other programs, have you made a commitment to address the programs that these funds will be used for, or are you just going to get the money again and not do anything, sit on your collective hands? Although I would say something else. It's a perfect example. Getting more federal funding without an idea of what to program it for, without an increase in any kind of workforce, without a direction to take with it, but we'll get the money, we'll submit applications for the money, and we'll wait till we get it. And then we'll wait for a backlog to occur. Where is that word coming from? Oh, I know, from the rape kits that are piling up. That's not been addressed because who knew that these different categories would exist? So, is there a program that will benefit the public, or is this just another banking arm for private concerns and deep pockets in L.A.? Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Zumadog. And there's no one else on that matter that we have a card for. Mr. Matt Dowd just turned in a card. Mr. Matt Dowd, 25.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just want to take a minute on this one. Of course, this is a yes. Unanimous vote. Obviously, we have to get these grant applications in before the deadline expires because the city's in such horrendous debt right now and a budget hole that's beyond anyone's expectations. But here's the thing, when you get this money from Barack Obama, See, he's setting the example. He's overseas, looking good. He's doing good things. He's saying the right things. He's taking a different approach. But here's what you got to do with this money, and I hope council members are listening. The stock market goes up and down. That's what it does. It's a trading thing. It trades up and down. People make money both ways. Here's what you do when you invest in the market. You liquidate your stock, your positions, when they're showing those 30% profits. You don't just leave it there forever. You don't get anything.
Okay, that matter is now before us. Madam Clerk, open the roll.
Mr. President,
Yes.
there's no action required on that one.
Then there will be no vote. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Next item is 31, and that was called special for cards.
Okay, we have Mr. Zumadog not here. Mr. Phil Jennerjohn, come on forward. And Yvette Neal. Jennerjohn, you're first, and then Mr. Neal on 31.
Okay. Good afternoon, council members. This one's about the spray paint cans, right?
31 is about the aerosol cans and permanent markers.
Okay. Well, it's kind of nice to have the whole council to myself. Almost everyone gone, and the members getting ready to get out of here.
Sir, there is a quorum here.
There's a quorum?
Yes, there's 10 people.
Okay,
and if
gotcha.
you count, you'll find a 10. If we blow
No,
10...
I was counting. I was keeping track. You guys
Okay,
have quorum.
well,
Don't
10's
worry.
the quorum. We
But
lose
I know
quorum,
people want to leave.
we end the meeting.
All right. I just want to say that about the spray paint can thing, it all goes back to when I ran for mayor, I told everyone that I'm a conservative Republican. I don't, believe in governments using force on the citizens. And I'm pretty much sure that all the members of the council are Democrats. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But I don't know how far I am wrong. All right, cool. All right, good. But I don't know how far to the left you guys are, but, when you vote on these things, I just want you to think about one thing, is that, how does this influence personal freedom in this city when you're saying that, you want to raise this tax on spray paint cans? Well, what's the goal? I think you're just saying that maybe you want to punish people who are, taggers and things, but, there's unintended side effects. There's people who are, construction workers and contractors, and they end up paying more money, and it's more of this whole sense of statism that the government has the right to control everyone and everything. I don't agree with it. I don't think you should raise the prices on this. I know you have a budgetary problem right now, but that's because, I've come here and seen you guys vote. You give away money like candy. You vote this, yes, yes, yes. I've almost never seen you guys vote no on anything. It's amazing. I mean, sometimes you have to draw a line in the sand. And I think, I'm sure you're not going to start here, but I hope you'll think about this in the future. Just, does the government really have the right to dictate, everything in everyone's lives? I mean, the city does have a budget crisis, but that's because you spend too much on things that are unnecessary. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Burke? Wasn't there a Ms. Burke who wanted to speak? Yvette Neal. I'm sorry, Ms. Neal. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Ms. Neal.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for allowing this to come before you. I know it has to, but my name is Yvette Neal. I'm with Pacific Graffiti Solutions. I'm one of the 14 contractors that work with Department of Public Works. I'm in strong favor of this, as just personally and or with my company. Last month, we removed over 151,326 square feet of graffiti, and of that, 6,298 of them were different sites. If you do the math, that breaks down to 24 cents a square foot. Any contractor, any C33 contractor gets at least $5 to $7 per square foot. The tagging is not going to go down with the city budget. I mean, the LAUSD cuts. There's not going to be a lot of after-school programs, and there's going to be actually an increase in tagging. The funding that we have right now is unfortunately at risk of being cut. And again, I'm just in strong favor of this, as I know the effects on the graffiti removal. I have 5 crews amongst 100 square miles of territory. One of those crews has been partially funded by Bill Rosendahl for the last 3 years, and Jack Weiss just funded one for the next 6 months. If I was to lose any of my crews, the response time is going to grow immensely, which means you guys are going to get more calls and complaints. Crime is going to go up. It's going to be a whirlwind of effect. So I strongly support anything that would help in the efforts to fund our programs, and maybe even look into, evaluating the programs that are there so that they are more accountable for the work that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Mr. Weezer?
Thank you very much.
There's another public comment, Mr. Weezer. Mr. Matt Dow just turned a card in.
Okay.
And then we'll hear from Mr. Weezer. Matt Dow.
Yeah, my apologies, Mr. Weezer, but I got to take a minute on this one, and surprisingly, I'm in support. of course, of all the good things that you do. You know, if you're doing, and this is supporting a state thing that's going to allow you to increase the surcharge on these cans at a city level on spray cans. You know, and this is the kind of thing you like to do. You like to have the power to run your own thing, right? Just like we did out there on the beach. That's why I'm talking about this. I hope I get through to you that, you know, like, nobody likes to have the control of their own backyard taken away from them. And we won $264,000 already over Venice Beach, and I'm just pointing out a fact. So here's what you want to do is take control back of the amount you can put on these spray cans. And Mr. Parks is right. This is a good thing to do. Let's make him pay for it.
Thank you, Mr. Weezer.
No, that was Mr. Matt
No,
Dowd.
I was thanking him.
Oh, okay.
And then, comma, period, semicolon, Mr. Weezer.
He has a beanie, he has glasses, he has long hair, and a beard. And
There's a distinction between the
shaven,
two.
short hair. And, okay.
I ran the sentences together, excuse me.
If I could grow a beard, I would, for the record, but I can't. Thank you very much. And colleagues, when my staff and I sat down and thought about what we could do to address the issue of graffiti, we brainstormed and we found that there is a state law on the books that allows local jurisdictions to tax aerosol cans and markers by 10 and 5 cents. However, we found that this was unworkable. It's unworkable because it would cost more for local jurisdictions to put this on the ballot than the money they would raise to then use that additional tax funds to address graffiti. So we talked with our state senator, Carol Liu, who was recently elected, and she agreed to put in a bill that will increase the amount that local jurisdictions can tax aerosol cans and markers to hopefully get more money to fight graffiti. If passed, local jurisdictions can use this money to remove graffiti and fund crews who do it, like the young woman who is here who does a marvelous job of that. It would allow us to use the money for new technologies to fight graffiti, and would also allow us to use some of that money to restore murals. We are the mural capital of the world, and it's very unfortunate that many of these murals continue to deteriorate without sufficient funding. And I know Tom LaBonge is working on that in his committee, without sufficient funding to restore these murals. But if passed, this would also help the city of Los Angeles get an additional, and this is only approximate, $2 to $4 million to fight graffiti, and that would add to our current $7 or so million, which is not enough. I mean, these taggers are out there tagging each and every day, and as many of you know, as soon as we take one down, they're up the next day, and it's continuous. So hopefully with this, we will do, one, fix a broken state law, two, allow us to get more resources to fight graffiti. I urge you for your support, and this, if passed, will be put on our state legislative program for support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weezer. The matter is now before a vote. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And forthwith with that important matter. Mr. LaBonge, hold on a second. We have a few more items, then we'll get to announcements. We still have a quorum, I understand, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Parks?
I would just like to ask that on item 16, we originally continued it to April 15th. We'd like to move that to April 22nd.
Okay. No opposition. Move that to April 22nd. Mr. LaBonge has an announcement, but let's hold off on the announcement until we get some of these matters
I was
done.
just going to say, if we need to continue these to next week, let's continue.
Well, if we can finish them, we can finish
Someone has a
them.
meeting with a federal official right now.
While we still have a quorum.
Go.
Let's go, next one.
Next one is item 33.
33. We have two cards, Dr. Williams and Chuck Tennant. Chuck Tennant's gone. Mr. Williams, Dr. Williams? Okay, thank you. Matters before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
All right, next item, please.
Item number 39, call special for cards.
Mr. Sachs, Mr. Dowd. Mr. Sachs, Mr. Dowd.
I'm sorry, I had to listen to you guys speak all morning. You have to listen to me for 30 seconds. I'm just curious, these projects like 30 through 39 that require, they're going to be apartments, they're going to be condominiums. So I was just curious, yesterday in the County Board of Supervisors, they had a discussion about the Grand Avenue project and how the related company is giving up funding up front. And so I asked, that funding, will that be in lieu of Quimby fees? And since the city is involved in the Grand Avenue project, and they also collect Quimby fees, I'm wondering, are these developers required to give Quimby fees, and should they give them up front? I think that's a great policy change, so that the public gets the parkland before the development is put into practice. I think that's a very good idea. I think the city council should pursue that so that the public gets Quimby fees up front and we don't have the fiasco like we've had before. Thank you.
Okay, that matters before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Item 52, 4 cards.
Okay, we have Mr. Zumadog, Mr. Sachs, Mr. Anthony, and Mr. Dowd. So let's go in that order. Mr. Zumadog?
Yes. Thank you, City Council. Here to address an important issue, special event fee waivers. Now, the thing is, I know Councilmember Smith is upset, saying, gee, people complain we lost $7 billion in risky stock market investments. Well, gee, we just did well 10 years in a row. Let me tell you how it works in gambling. It doesn't matter if you win the first 10 hands, if you lose your entire pot on the 11th, which is what just happened to the city of Los Angeles. Complete fiscal Armageddon. It's described to me as Armageddon. We have $7 billion in Lacers money lost.
Mr. Zine, he is not talking
You're not on the
about
focus, Mr. Dog.
It's on focus. First of all, I heard the city attorney didn't do this anymore. Secondly, we have a budget crisis. These are special event fee waivers for parades, face painting, cookie sprinkling, dog walking, walks, jogs, runs, sprints, stretches, all types of nonsense that has nothing to do with saving jobs, 5,000 jobs. None of this has anything to do with fixing the schools, keeping the streets
That's
safe.
not the matter, Mr. Dog.
Okay, I want a no vote on all of these items.
Thank you. Thank you. You're finished, Mr. Dog. Thank you. Next. You're done. You're done. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Sachs. Followed by Mr. Dowd. Followed by Mr. Anthony. And we've got one item left, council members, and then we will be adjourned.
Thank you. Very quickly, you have initiated a change in your policy regarding the special event fees, and it was a recent change. So just out of curiosity, with all the people that have come before the city council in probably in the last, just counting 3 years, requesting a change in the policy, any kind of tabulation on what money was saved or would have been saved if this change in policy that nobody wanted to step forward and address would have been attempted or put into effect 3 years ago? Could we get an accounting from the CAO's office on that? Would that be possible so the public can see what money was poured out the window by the council's inability to act? Thank you.
Matt Dowd, followed by Mr. Anthony.
Yeah.
Go ahead. If you want to conclude, that's fine too.
I've come to expect that.
There you go.
But look, I've been talking about this for 3 years, and, you know, some of these are good, but, you know, the eyebrows go up at this one that Bill Rosendahl, Janice Hahn are trying to put through the Short Avenue Elementary Hawaiian Luau at this point. But anyway, look, these are chump change. Really, the 3,000 here and 3,000 there and 2,000. They're chump change in the city of Los Angeles right now. The real money is saved from these law firms out here, these outside counsel, all these big development projects that get approved. If you want to start paying for these special event fee waivers, and you don't want the public getting up and crying about it and yelling and screaming and carrying on, then start saving money where it really counts. The lawsuits. I got another one coming.
Thank you. Matters now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, we have one item left, number 57. Okay, that matter is now before us. We have 3 public comment cards. Mr. Sachs.
Thank you again. Arnold Sachs. I believe it was last week you had an item before you on the agenda regarding some requests from the DOT. Each council could request some funding for a special project. And I even asked why only 2 of the council districts were putting in requests for funding. So I was just curious to know, why wouldn't this project be considered as a request from the Caltrans? Why take money from your city accounts to pay for funding that could have been requested through Caltrans? You had the request before you last week. Stop. Answer the question. That would be nice. That's all you need to do. Don't shake your head. Just answer the question.
Mr. Dowd? On number 57.
Yeah,
Excuse me, Mr. Dowd, your time is up, so you're done. Thank you very much. Mr. Zumadog. That's what the clerk tells me, Mr. Dowd. You're done. Mr. Zumadog, I'm not going to argue with you. You're done. Mr. Zumadog. Mr. Zumadog. You're done, Mr. Dowd. Mr. Zumadog, you're up. You've expended your time. Mr. Zumadog, you're up.
Look,
2 minutes.
What happens when Dennis takes over? And I'd like to say for the record, just because a council member doesn't have the intelligence to follow what the constituent is saying because he's more intelligent, does not mean he's off topic. Now we're going to talk about gridlock. Traffic grid. And Dennis, check your message. I already left one. Yes, traffic gridlock. We're talking about a turn signal. And Zumadog, I'm here to tell you how to solve gridlock. We have a problem with the pedestrians. Now, I'm very serious. If you're ready, you're in the traffic lanes with 20 lanes of cars. You're ready to make a right or left turn. One pedestrian jumps out, boom, traffic gridlock, nobody's moving. And hey, this is not against pedestrians. I am one of these people. And then as soon as I'm across, then the next guy's starting to walk across. So we got traffic in both lanes being shut, waiting for pedestrians. We must have the signals timed so all the pedestrians go at one time, and then all the traffic the other. I mean, there's no other solution. There's no other solution. I'm not being a smartass. You can't have pedestrians and traffic on the same signal. Thank you.
Thank you. Matters before us. Open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk.
Next item is
Mr. President, the last speaker should be warned not to use inappropriate language in council.
I agree. I agree with that. Thank you. And we're concluded with the agenda items.
Yes, council has motions for posting and referral.
Posted and referred.
And that clears the desk.
Very good. Any announcements? Mr. Labange, announcements? Ms. Hahn, announcements? Mr. Rosendahl, announcements?
Yes.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah,
hold on, Mr. Rosendahl. Ms. Hahn has someplace to go. And Mr. Rosendahl and Mr. Hahn.
Well, I just want to make one announcement before we talk about the Italian earthquake. I just want to make an announcement that before the Planning Commission tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m., they will be hearing the item of the Ponte Vista project in San Pedro. I've provided a bus to leave from Peck Park at 7:30 a.m. And also, as a result of our new technology in the San Pedro Municipal Building, you can testify and have your voice heard live tomorrow morning at 8:30. Just go to the San Pedro Municipal Building at Harbor Boulevard and Beacon and 7th. Go there and you can have your voice heard. You don't need to come down here, but if you want to come down here, there's a bus leaving Peck Park at 7:30 a.m. Everybody should have their voice heard on this project. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Labange.
Mr. Rosendahl.
That the location managers in our great entertainment industry are having a 3-day convention, a trade show, April 16th, 17th, and 18th. And I urge you to go from 2 p.m. to 7 on the 16th. And you'll see this in Santa Monica at their overall center there that they have down near the beach. This location managers convention is the largest one they have every year, and if you believe in the film industry, I think it would be a good thing to do, to go to Santa Monica, go to their conference center, and go to this location trade show. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Any other announcements? Please stand for adjourning motions. Mr. Labange, adjourning motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I'm joined by Ms. Hahn, 50th District. I'm also joined by Carmela Fucciano of our sister city Ischia, Italy, and also joined here with Camilla Blanche, who coordinates the Sister City program, as we stand in unity with our brothers and sisters in Italy with the tragic earthquake that's taken over 250 lives and over thousands of injuries. It is an effect that is being focused on. We have information about where to go and help in this area here, but I'd like to call on Ms. Hahn to express her words as well as our sister city chair.
Well, I wanted to take this opportunity to make our hearts and our prayers go out to the survivors, the families of the victims of this terrible, terrible earthquake. And this is what our sister city relationship is all about. We are united. We are solid in our hopes and prayers for each other. And we're waiting to hear from our Council General on what actions he would like the City of Los Angeles to take. But certainly our sympathy and prayers go to all those who have been involved in this terrible tragedy in Italy.
Carmelo.
All members on this adjourning motion.
Carmelo.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Hahn and Tom Labange and all of you and Camille. We thank you for the support, the good word, and any help you can give to this area that is destroyed. Most important, there was so much art, churches centuries old, and they are all done. And the victim, of course, the number is rising. We hope that there is not much more movement of earth that will provoke even more building to come down. Over 15,000 people are in a tent right now, or much more because the number rise by day. I am in contact with some people over there, and I'm reading what they feeling, and they are in fear. They are in the cold because it was raining right after the earthquake, and it's on the mountain, so it's very cold, and they hope for any help. So we thank you. I will relate with Mr. Francesco Perilli, the artist who was here, that lives there, very close by. I'm talking to him almost every day. And I just thank you for your support, good word, and help. Thank you.
Thank you. Our condolences.
Thank you, and I will notify Channel 35 just to put a little listing up for any of the relief associations, and we will ask that a letter of condolences and support be sent through the council office.
Okay, thank you.
Council. Thank you, Mr.
By all council members. Thank you, Mr. Labange, Ms. Hahn, Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask, and this is in behalf of Mrs. Perry, CD9, that we adjourn in memory of Otis Lee Walker. He's a retired city employee and the father of Wilmer Hunter, who's the executive assistant to Jerry Miller, our CLA. Mr. Walker was born in 1919 in Fayette County, Alabama, passed away April 3rd, 2009, just a few days shy of his 90th birthday. He's married to Beulah May Shaw on September 1940. He worked for the city's Public Works Bureau of Sanitation from 1954 until his retirement in 1986. After retirement, he and his wife moved to Apple Valley, where they became members of the High Desert Church of Christ in Apple Valley. One of their proudest accomplishments is the 23 college degrees earned by their children, grandchildren, and their spouses. He's survived by his wife, May, of 68 years, 6 children, 12 grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren. Services will be held April 11th in Apple Valley, California.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. No other adjourning motions?
Employee.
Okay, all members on that adjourning motion. Thank you, Mr. Parks. Thank you, Mr. Labange. That concludes our meeting. Madam Clerk.